and Organizing Committee, World Poetry Conference. Welcome you all to the fourth day of the third World Poetry Conference, Literature in Difficult Times, in which we as poets have gathered here with a mission to disseminate beauty that makes our individual existence universal. Now, in such times that have pitched the world into disarray, it is just another world that art and poetry takes us to. We can feel the pain the world goes through, we live the pain, and we try to transform that pain into an art that actually has the power to soothe melancholic hearts suffering that pain. So, in that sense, this conference, Literature in Difficult Times, has an intent, a role of its own. This is a humble way of shouldering some responsibility of spreading solace, spreading beauty, spreading radiance of positive thoughts through the world. I welcome you all once again, all the guests, all the participating poets, panelists, members of the audience, members of the organizing committee. On behalf of the organizing committee again, I also welcome our chairperson, Dr. Janal Singh Anandji. Uh, in the very beginning, I would like to introduce all of you to our special guest, the guest of honor today, who is Ambassador Lubomir Mihajlovsky. He is our chief guest for today's evening, and he is a personality from Macedonia, an award-winning poet, an ambassador of World Poets in Macedonia. He's also the Lord of Justice and Peace, British Empire. Chief Peace Ambassador of United Minds for Peace Society for Europe and India, Ambassador of World Institute for Peace in Macedonia, Honorary Doctorate of World Peace, President of Vision Science Fiction Center of Macedonia, and so on. He has over 20 books to his credit. Now, due to some technical and connectivity issues, we could not have him live with us face to face, but we shall have his message through his audio being played on the screen. I request Dr. Mukesh Grover to play the audio so that we can have the message of our chief guest, Mr. Lubomir Mihajlovsky.
We have his videos. Not audible.
Mukeshji, could we have the audio file, please? That would be more comfortable and convenient because that was quite clear.
I think ask Mukesh to play the audio file, not the video. I think audio will work. Please use the audio.
Greetings from Macedonia. My dear brother, congratulations to all participants of this big poetry.
Very bad.
Connection. Always I like tell you all participants to have be successful in this conference, and I hope we have a long collaboration. Thank you very much for attention.
Yeah, thank you so much for that message. So that was a pious initiation of our function today. Today's conference on the fourth day of the proceedings shall have 3 sessions. In the first session, we'll be having panel discussion on the topic literary creation as the fallout of social reality. How much does it affect the contemporary reality? The second session would be a poetry session with 11 participating poets and will be curated by Professor Mandakini Bhattacharya. And the third and final session of today's proceedings would be again a poetry session with 17 poets hosted by Professor Saranya Francis. So to initiate the first session of the conference, that is the panel discussion, I invite my 2 beautiful friends, Ankita and Ashu Garg, both fine poets, teachers, and wonderful human beings to take over the virtual stage. Ankita and Ashu, welcome on stage.
Thank you so much, Parneet ma'am.
Thank you so much, Parneet ma'am.
Traces of Thank you so much, Ankita. Traces of earth beneath my nails. I dig deeper yet, as if to ask the gravid soil a few favors. I bury hope with a handful of seeds. Here comes the rain, here comes the sun. It pours, it pains as saplings sprout. A tender shoot, a force mow away. Creation's song reverberates. Good evening, one and all. With these words of hope, I, Ashu Garg, along with my friend Ankita Uba, welcome you to the penultimate day of the World Poetry Conference-lll. The contemporary reality of any time has always affected literary creations and scientific discoveries. The social reality, triggered by moral, economic, social, and hierarchical triggers, have always made great thinkers think and put their thoughts on paper. As we live today, our world today has witnessed an upheaval. We try to decipher the meaning and impact of it on all of us and literature. On this note, I now hand over the stage to my friend Ankita.
Thank you, Ashu. I'll take over. I have the privilege of inviting somebody who's very important in this program. He's the most important, actually. Some call him the lion heart. Some call him their inspiration. Some dedicate their poems to him. He is a tireless creative instrument, and we all are in the awe of his magnanimity and generosity. He put foundation to this poetic institution as a sapling, which has now grown into a large tree, bearing fruit in the shape of new poets, thus deepening the roots of literature. He is Dr. J.S. Anand. So here I feel privileged to extend a warm welcome to the all dearest Dr. J.S. Anand to open today's panel discussion. Please, sir.
Thank you, Ankita. Thank you, Ashu Garg, for your 2 sweet words. I am already having sugar problem. Anyway, thank you very much. All you have given a lot of time to our foundation, to this program, for which I am thankful to you. Today's program, today's panel discussion centers around the idea of literary creation as the fallout of social reality. How much does it affect the contemporary reality? I would not like to comment much on it because we want to listen to them, and I will come to the stage later on. But one thing I would like to just say passing remarks that this pandemic has forced us into our laptops, into our webinars. And what is happening? We are going on with literature, and this is also of a very high order, as we see. And this is the fallout of that pandemic, good or bad. There are so many things. And then one connected idea is how social reality affects literature and how literature then reshapes social reality. I think these are the issues which are to be encountered today. We have highly accomplished panelists today, Arindam ji, Dr. Beena Singh, Dr. Deepa ji, Deepa Chandra Ram, and Professor Mandakini Bhattacharya. All of them are highly seasoned poets, writers, authors, and teachers. And definitely, I think from their discussion, from their views, something solid is going to emerge. That is my hope. Thank you very much. Over to Ankita for further.
Mr. Arindam Roy, our first panelist. Mr. Arindam Roy is a publisher, editor, author, poet, translator, a teacher of mass communication and creative writing with over 39 years of experience in various newsrooms. Festival director of the Kavya Kumbh, a mega international multilingual poetry fest. He is the founder and editor-in-chief of The Different Truths. He has contributed 13 chapters to various books and publications. He is a co-author of a novel, Rivers Run Back, which was launched at the American Center, New Delhi in 2015. Mr. Arindam Roy, we welcome you here on this stage and are eager to know your views on the topic for today. Please, sir.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Ankita. Good evening, Jarnail ji, Parneet ji, my co-panelists. I'll come straight to the point because I believe we have paucity of time. So being an editor, I tweak words. So I've just simplified the heading, and I now call it, Does Literature Mirror and Impact Social Reality? I'll begin and end with something very personal, and there might be quotes, there would be quotes in between. Now, many moons ago, during one of my tours to cover the election, I heard an interesting story from an elder in a remote village of Uttar Pradesh. It has stayed with me. The village chief's son was at the construction site during lunch break. He saw a poor laborer eat just dry rotis, though he was dipping his roti into the hollow of his empty and bare left palm and was biting at nothing held between his thumb and forefinger. Curious, this boy asked him what he was doing. The poor laborer replied, Babuji, paisa nahi hai. हम सोचत रहे कि दूसर हाथ में लोन और मिर्चा है. Sir, I have no money. I imagined my other palm, there was salt and green chili. The young boy said, अरे अगर सोचा के रहा तो रबड़ी मलाई काहे नहीं सोचा? If you had to imagine, why did you not think of sweet cream? He meekly agreed that he could have done that. When the lad insisted on knowing that why he did not think of good food, the laborer asked, Babuji, वो सब खाए में कैसा होता? Sir, how do those things taste?
Arindam ji, please a little bit loud.
Okay, can't you hear me? Hello, can't you hear me?
We want to hear you better.
Okay. I'll try and speak louder. Here we see is it better now? Here we see a conflict between the social realities of the young boy and that of the poor laborer. Also, their imaginations are rooted in their respective realities. I'm reminded of the prominent Hindi poet Gajanan Madhav Muktibodh's poem, Chaand ka muh tena hai. Moon has a crooked face. If the moon's face is crooked, should we, a poet or a writer, alter the reality and present it after processing, filtering, and fixing it? Or should we have the courage to speak the truth, no matter how unsavory it might be? Literature not only reflects, but it also acts like a prism and refracts social reality. In the creative process, we also draw a lot from our memories. Therefore, we alter it too. We often add to or subtract from our life experiences, often the past or the contemporary times. We make it appear the way we wish it to appear. In Hamlet, Shakespeare elucidates the purpose of literature is, quote, to hold the mirror up to nature. Here, the bard meant human nature. To quote the abstract of two scholars, Dr. Muhammad Abd al-Salam and Amal Galal Muhammad Morsi, Department of English Language and Literature, Faculty of Arts, Fayoum University, we find them state, reflection is not a new concept in literary criticism. However, hello, can you hear me clearly, all of you? Hello, okay. I heard some disturbance. Anyway, I'm continuing. Hello.
Sir, you are audible. Yes, sir, you're audible. Please continue.
Okay. Thank you. I was getting some disturbance. Just a minute. Just give me a minute. So, okay. Reflection is not a new concept in literary criticism. However, this concept reached its dialectic perfection at the hand of the Marxist philosopher George Lucas, 1885 to 1971. We all know he was from Hungary. Believing that man is the focal point in every literary content, Lucas conceives realism as the basis of all literary genres due to its significant role in solving man's problems of alienation and the self-split caused by capitalism, and it is therefore the best representation of his reflection theory. Reflection for Lucas is neither spontaneous nor photographic, but deliberate and conscious. In this process, the writer plays the role of the mediator between literature and society. A great writer has, thus, to portray his characters and their struggle for self-realization objectively without imposing his political orientation. Through his typical characters and situations, the writer brings the reality in front of his readers' eyes so as to enable them to confront their troubles and think of change. And this is intellectual and moral work of the realist writer in Lucas's perspective. Talking about the link between literature and society, S. Kritika, in a paper, Literature and Society, How Literature Reflects Society, opines, society forms the bond of association between man and man through communicating that the poet or the writer pursues. Literature influences the society. Society is referred in literature. In all languages and all ages, there has been a close relationship between literature and society. Literature cannot escape at an age from the influence of the social affairs, and therefore it reflects the society of the age when it was created. I was talking to a writer friend the other day on some other topic. She reminded me of magic realism, a mishmash of reality and fantasy, a world where dreams, fantasies, magics, and realities met. Social realities as journalists or historians understand, is quite different from the realism in literature. The artists of the Romantic period idealized reality. Quote, landscapes were more beautiful, emotions exaggerated, and bodies perfected, pointed out Kelsey McKinney. He adds, just as realism was a response to romanticism, magic realism was a response and a reaction to realism. Elucidating on magic realism, McKinney adds, the story must be set in a realistic environment with magical elements. Part of the draw of magical realism is that it blurs the line between realistic fiction and fantasy by adding elements like presence of dead characters in Toni Morrison's Beloved, fluidity of time in Gabriel Garcia Marquez's 100 Years of Solitude, and telepathy in Tia Obredet's The Tiger's Wife. This was the first novel. In each of these cases, social reality has undergone change in literature. We have also seen how the reality, the truth of journalism and historian is different from that of the writer or poet. While the former, journalist oblique historian, tells us what has happened, a writer or a poet goes a step further to tell us what might happen. Literature is often like gazing the crystal ball. Now, let us look at how literature has influenced society. Manal Ismail, staff reporter of Gulf News, stated, literature has had a major impact on the development of society. It has shaped civilizations, changed political systems, and exposed injustice. Literature gives us a detailed purview of human experiences, allowing us to connect on basic levels of desire and emotions. However, just as it has constructed societies, the writings and works of certain authors have degraded societies to more primitive form, unquote. S. Kritika, in a research paper quoted above, further elaborates, quote, literature makes us deeply analyze societal issues, and sometimes it provides us a solution to solve the problem. The poet, the dramatist, the novelist, the essayist, all of them reflect society in their works. Dwelling on how literature influences social reality, Kritika closes the essay stating that literature greatly influences younger generations, and it would help them to understand where the ancestors went wrong and how they could rectify errors. Quote, literature also helps in shaping civilizations and changing political systems, she opines. A lasting impact of literature is interdisciplinary. History, as we have known it, is often the narrative of the power that be. These days, there is an attempt to look for alternative sources of history. In fact, folk songs and dances represent the counter narrative. These are subversive protest poetry. Along with these, the modern historian creates beaded history, weaving into the narrative newspaper reports, police cases, verdicts of court, fieldwork by researchers, and memory of the people, often elders, about those incidents. Last but not the least, books of that period serve as a rich source of history despite altered reality. Thank you, friends.
Thank you so much, Arindam sir, for those words. Now we have Dr. Beena Singh. Dr. Beena Singh is the head of the English department at the Vasant Kanya Mahavidyalaya, BHU Varanasi. Dr. Singh has organized, participated, and chaired multiple national and international conferences, literary meets, and poetry festivals. She has also authored 7 books and is presently the president of Kashi Tattva Sabha Theosophical Society, Indian section, Varanasi. I welcome you, Dr. Singh. It is our privilege to listen to your views on the topic.
Thank you, Ashu. Am I audible enough?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Once again, good evening to all my poet fraternity. Greetings with love and best wishes from Kashi, the holy city of light and peace. Before I begin my talk, I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to my very dear, honorable poet, philosopher, scholar friend, Professor J.S. Anand, who has given me this wonderful opportunity to share my views regarding literature, reality, life, society, because literature has been with me, I think, for more than 40 years. So it is almost a synonym, a very essential part of my existence. The literary reality, I'll be coming to that. I personally look at literature, or I call it literary reflections, are the resurging spirit. They are always there, ceaselessly inspiring life, enlightening life, marshalling life, conducting life. Life is a void, a vacuum without literature. Now, regarding the topic today about social reality, fallout, I would begin my talk by referring to the 20th century modern American poet, Robert Frost. He gives a beautiful analogy, explaining realism in art. And the example that he gives, it is from everyday life. He says that when you go to purchase a potato and the vegetable vendor, he is having two kinds of potato. One digged from the earth, coated with mud, and the other clean, washed. And it is quite natural that we go for the clean potato. Nobody buys the potato with mud. And this is what the literary artist is doing. The crude realities of life, that is rough. That the artist, with his creative imagination, colors it, makes it beautiful, more appealing, more interesting, more effective for the reader. So the realism in art is very much the realism that we have in life, as stated by Robert Frost. The artist only gives it a touch of color and beauty with his creative imagination. So social reality is inseparable. We can say it is just the other side of the coin. Life and literature are inseparable. And as my friend Arindam already talked about, that how the artist, and it is actually, we have found, all of my friends know, the great philosopher and romantic critic, Coleridge, when he talks about the creative process, he says, what is the poet doing actually? Poet is only realizing the ideal and then idealizing the real. It is internalizing the external and then externalizing the internal. So the reality existing and the reality in the art, it is just a complementary. They are just complementing each other. They are not separate. Only the reality in art becomes a little more effective with the colors of imagination, with the verbal felicity that the artist, the literary artist gives to it, Now, as we all agree, and I think we all believe in that time immemorial, from the very dawn of human civilization, literature has been an effective power in regenerating faith with enlightening wisdom. Literature is life because the literary artist, through his different creative expression, intends to contemplate and mirror life. Literature and life are inseparable, rather closely connected, sharing an intimate bonding. The great books, my friends, the great books, therefore, are not a mighty bloodless substitutes for life, but are as vital and living as life itself. In fact, more interesting, intriguing, and mystifying than what life appears to the ordinary people. Poignantly, literary creations connects us with life at its best and interestingly meaningful moments, making us know more deeply about the significance of living. Thus, literature has always stood as the torchbearer, enlightening civilization to overcome savagery. In the words of Leo Tolstoy, without literature, men would have been like wild beasts because it endows an understanding and empathy in the reader. Because it is all about that reality. Call it social reality, call it moral reality, call it emotional reality. The reality is very much in the soul of the creation. Any form, be it a drama, be it a novel, essay, poem, whatever the genre may be. But eventually, the artist is indulging in the very depth of life, exploring and creating something, something that is more convincing. Literature brings that social reality in a more convincing form, more acceptable. Hence, literature unites mankind, aiming higher, redeeming humanity from falling apart, destroying negative and destructive forces, upholding the positive values of life that nurture, nourishes, enriches, empowers, and sustains existence. And we all know of, my friends, the great classics, are lofty literary texts that have stood the test of time, enlightening civilization ceaselessly. Literary forms in any frame, drama, fiction, poetry, essay, or any mode, comedy, tragedy, or satire, have eventually indulged in portraying life as observed, perceived, and realized. No doubt they are structured, painted in a plethora of color, alluring and appealing, and sensitizing mankind. Although reality is dramatized, yet the poignantly effective strokes used by the literary artist succeeds in achieving a willing suspension of disbelief in order to create poetic beauty and poetic truth. Whenever we as students of literature look into the rich literary tradition, one finds a fathomless realm. Epics like Mahabharata, Ramayana, Odyssey, Iliad, Paradise Lost, The Wasteland, so on and so forth, have timelessly fascinated creative minds beyond temporal boundaries. Whether you pick up Charles Dickens, Oliver Twist, or Hard Times, or Premchand's Thakur Ka Kuan, Godan, or Jane Austen, or Hardy. Everywhere you will find that these artists have relentlessly strived towards an unfolding life, be it the issue of oppression or child exploitation, or in Hardy's nature exploitation, be it about social injustice, whatever the issues that have endangered life, these iconic, legendary artists, through their mighty pen, have stood against, voiced that reality, protesting all the different kind of oppressions that are there. So they are the social realists, they are the social reformers. They may have given a fictitious narration in the form of a novel. Be it our bard Shakespeare, all his plays. Don't we find a Hamlet or a Macbeth or an Othello every next? They have created the living, immortal characters, which has come out, from life itself. So life, the realities of life and the dramatized reality portrayed in the form of a drama or a fiction is not different. Only the frame in which they are structured, that is a little made attractive, because the artist, the literary artist, born with a poetic genius, the highest faculty, the creative imagination, have succeeded in repainting that the crude, the unpolished, the rough reality, in order to give that effective stroke, that powerful sensitivity, sensitizing through their creation life itself. All these forms are there, but I am just taking one. All of you are familiar with that, and I think we all are poets here. So poetry, I think, is a passion for all of us. So I'm especially going to focus on poetry, how it appears to be a resurging spirit. How, as Wordsworth said, that poet is a man speaking to men. Poetry heals. So that healing power is to be revisited, I think. That is what I'm just trying to revisit. Poetry is a serious preoccupation with the art of living itself. It is not just art for art's sake. It is an integral part of life and not just a source of delight, as very rightly claimed by the Victorian philosopher and critic and poet Matthew Arnold, that poetry should fill the void and the kind of emptiness, the kind of anxiety, the kind of fear due to the devastating impact of the pandemic that we all are going through. Poetry
I think
Okay.
there is some connectivity issue.
Okay.
Meena?
I think, yeah, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am. We can
Yes.
hear you, but we
Okay.
can't see you.
You can't see me. Yeah, that I can also not see myself. But anyway, I'll just complete myself.
Yes.
I actually, yeah, I was just going to take up Swami Vivekanand because for me, although there is a whole list of poets, you have, you can just go on naming. It is unlimited, starting right from Chaucer, Milton, Shakespeare, and moving on to the Romantics, and then the modern T.S. Eliot, and again postmodern. So there's a whole list. But I, especially, experiencing the anxiety that we are going through, all of us, felt that uh, it is the most appropriate time to remember and to bring back Swami Vivekanand. Vivekanand, the immortal seer, happens to be a deeply passionate poet as well. इकट्ठी है, बिल्कुल ही इकट्ठ पे जाने दो.
Dr. Bina, we
Okay.
can see you now.
Yeah. I just tried to readjust myself.
Yes, ma'am.
Anyway,
Yes, we can see you.
coming back. Sorry. This is as Dr. Anand said earlier also, that we, the passionate poets, we believe in connecting physically, being together and sharing our feelings. This digitalization, this technology has really destroyed the beauty of it. But anyway, I was talking about that Swami Vivekanand. Vivekanand, the immortal seer, happens to be a deeply passionate poet as okay. His lyrical cravings poignantly reflect enlightenment towards the totality of existence. देख लीजिए आनंद साहब तमाशा connectivity on and off हो रही है. Towards the totality of existence. The thematic concern of his poetic landscape depicts a plethora of colors, manifesting a magnificent realm, soothing, contemplative, and inspiring. I just quote some few lines from one of his poems. Hold on, yet a while, brave heart, if the sun by the cloud is hidden, if the welkin shows but gloom, hold yet a while, brave heart, the victory is sure to come. Vivekanand's assertion unquestionably depicts the unbeaten optimism, refusing to embrace failure. He further claims the duties of life are sore indeed, the goal is shadowy and dim, yet plod on through the dark, brave heart, plod on. It is true that the contemporary civilization is terribly soiled because of the pervasive existence of unethical, immoral practices, and the denizens of the contemporary wasteland, motivated by their material aspirations, endeavor in seeking their fulfillment through evil, unfair means and methods. In Arnold's words, I quote, and we are here as on a darkling plain, swept with confused alarms of struggle and life, flight, where ignorant armies clash by night. Vivekanand shared similar anxiety, especially for young India, and Swamiji rightly sings in the poem Song of Sannyasini, strike off thy fetters. See, I'm just trying to relive and reshare with you something that was written 200 the poetic assertions made by Vivekananda, especially the need of time. He is lyrically reflecting on the existing problems, the real problems, and how they can be dealt. And in the contemporary time of chaos, his poems appear to be so real, like the pole star guiding and illuminating. And he rightly remarks, though the good and wise in life are few, yet theirs are the reign to lead. With thee is the Lord of all might. All blessings pour on thee. To thee may all come right. Life, religion, divinity are closely connected. They are the real assets of life. However, often misunderstood and made complicated. Swami Ji, through his poems, presents a poignant and practical definition and understanding of religion, faith, and God. Unfortunately, in the present time.
Please wind up.
Okay, so thank you. Thank you.
Please.
Thank you. बहुत disturbances हुई थी, but कोई बात नहीं. Thank you, Anand ji. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So thank you so much, Dr. Beena. So our next panelist is Ms. Mandakini Bhattacharya from Kolkata, India. Mandakini is an associate professor of English, a multilingual poet, literary critic, and translator. She is the associate editor of the Muse of Now Paradigm anthology and is joint secretary of Prayas, a women's NGO in Kolkata. She's participated in the All India Young Writers Meet organized by the prestigious Sahitya Akademi, New Delhi in 2020. Mandakini, we welcome you here and are eager to see your reviews. Please share your views.
Thank you so much, Ankita. And I thought I was the fourth speaker, so I would be the fourth speaker, and I was relaxed. Okay, a very good evening to all my guests, all my audience, this extremely erudite and learned audience, and the chief guest, Libomir Mihailovsky, who couldn't be present, unfortunately, but we did hear his inspiring message. Namaste to all the distinguished guests of honor. Daniela is here, Dr. Daniela Marian is here, Professor Anantagiri, namaskar to all of them. And beside them, all my distinguished peers, my seniors, I offer my congratulations to everyone and thank you so much for being present here. Jarnail Singh ji, of course, hats off to you and to your energy, and you're like a father figure to all of us. Thank you so much. And since I deal with, this is a topic which interests us very much these days, and in fact, all of us who are practicing literature, and it's a wonderful thought of topic. And since my research area is more into literature of the marginal communities, I would like to say something about how marginal literature is looking beyond the pandemic. How do we deal with the implications of this kind of literature? Thank you. In a podcast released on August 5, 2020 on NBC News, former US First Lady Michelle Obama tells Washington Post columnist and friend Michelle Norris that she has been suffering from low-grade depression because of the coronavirus pandemic, the rise in racial injustice, and the rising protests since the death of George Floyd, watched by an apathetic and hypocritical administration. She says, and Breonna Taylor and others joined this list after George Floyd too. And she says that the stories of Black people being wrongfully arrested, killed, or quote unquote dehumanized during the pandemic have been weighing on her. As America continues to burn in protests against the cruel choking and death of African-American George Floyd, I could only think of Gwendolyn Brooks and her poems seared into my mind. Brooks was a champion of the Black Arts Movement, Black Civil Rights Movement, and Black American feminism. And the poem I'm reminded here of specifically is from the Bean Eaters. A Bronzeville mother loiters in Mississippi. Meanwhile, a Mississippi mother burns bacon. Brooks' poem appeared in 1960, 5 years after 14-year-old Emmett Till was murdered and his murderers acquitted in southern USA. In 56, his murderers confessed to the murder in an interview, excused by double jeopardy. This poem is written in free verse, and it mocks the ballad form and its fairy tale conclusions. It chooses the viewpoint of the perpetrator rather than the victim. Caroline Bryant's statement led to the murder of Emmett Till, which he later confessed was a lie. So the ballad form, the prince, the villain, the white steed, all are inverted here to crucify the white man's social caste system. And when Rosa Parks, immortalized later on by another famous African-American poetess, late Rita Dove, when Rosa Parks says that she rose to defend her bus seat, she said she had thought of Emmett Till. So history repeats itself, and rather paradoxically, it demands change. Now, what are the ramifications of social distancing and the pandemic of caste in literature in the context of India? Every pandemic produces literature, including marginal literature, and causes its loss too. Prolific Zimbabwean novelist and short story writer Yvonne Vera died of the AIDS pandemic, which raged in South Africa and Zimbabwe. She died in 2005. The sad reality of the current COVID-19 pandemic in India is that instead of physical distancing, we have propagated social distancing, which has made upper caste Indians gloat about the correctness of untouchability and the caste system. Tamil Dalit writer Bama's memoir, Karukku, illustrates social distancing between the other, quote-unquote, untouchable body. The poor, including a large section of the Dalits, are forced to beg, collect leftover food, and do menial jobs to survive in this pandemic situation. And in this context, I'm reminded of the Marathi Dalit poet Meena Gajabhi's poem, "Both Are Useless." I quote her, "What will you do for those whose hunger is an ache? Shed 2 tears, give a fourth of a slice of bread. What will you do for those who don't quite live and don't quite die? Write a beautiful poem on life or a beautiful poem on death. Whatever you do, it will be useless." So caste erasure and appropriation are also very much alive and thriving, and we see its reflection in literature as well as how literature appropriates these caste equations. The recent example of popular Bollywood rap artist Badshah, you've all heard of him, at least the Indians do, misappropriating the lyrics of the popular Bengali Dalit folk song written by Ratan Kahar is a case in point. In the song Bodo Loker Biti Lo, the song in question, the Dalit mother tells her daughter about her upper caste father who has abandoned them, and she tells her that she looks like him. Badshah has transformed this poignant story of caste arrogance into a misogynistic song that sexually objectifies the female body, accompanied by raunchy lyrics that make one cringe. The Dalit artist, the writer, is hobbled by the pandemic to travel and seek justice or legal help. The furor on social media obliges the millionaire rap artist to part with a paltry sum as compensation to the artist, nowhere close to the millions he has earned himself by selling the song. Those traveling by aeroplanes are handed sanitizers, while social and religious minorities obliged to migrate across India during the pandemic lockdown are sprayed with harmful disinfectants. Are we not then reminded of this scorching poem by Meena Londe, in which she writes, "Don't look at me as if you were an orphan. We are more than refugees. Without homes here, a burden of centuries on our backs, and even with that, no footprints on this muddy piece of land. If the earth is not ours, how can we speak of the sky?" All this angst and deliberation is finding expression in lockdown literature and lockdown art, terms spawned off by the current pandemic. My own deliberations on Bengali Dalit refugee autobiographies while writing a research paper during the pandemic led me to dwell on the similarities between the condition of such Dalit refugees during the partition of India on the one hand, and the migrant labor crisis on India, and also the ongoing larger Rohingya crisis, which is affecting Myanmar, Bangladesh, and the entire Asian subcontinent on the other. And it led me to produce my own poem on the death of a 12-year-old female migrant laborer who had no option but to walk 150 kilometers home, and she died just before she reached home. And I read this poet at an international poetry festival where I was invited. So entire literary festivals, webinars, and journal issues in several Indian languages, as indeed in several international languages around the world, are focusing on raising awareness and preserving for posterity the horrors of the pandemic and lockdown Holocaust. This is how literature affects life and how life affects literature. How do we preserve marginal literature beyond the pandemic? One very effective method, and I am a teacher, I teach in a college. One very effective method is to discuss these issues in the classroom. So as I was discussing Frankenstein the other day in my classroom, I was reminded of so many parallels, how Mary Shelley's Frankenstein is vastly influenced by Mary's own reading of Humphrey Davy, and how Humphrey Davy, who is an inspiration for Professor Waldman in the novel, who is the teacher of Frankenstein, Humphrey Davy shows this entire conflict between man's mastery over nature, and here man is opposed to nature as the feminine. So there is this whole manipulation of nature, which we are again visualizing during the pandemic. And again, Mary Shelley paints as I was explaining to my students, she refers to the picture of the creature, the description of the creature as that having yellow skin. Now, it is obviously a reference to Asian people and the racism prevalent very much in English society, where Asians were looked down upon. And so these all focus on the social realities back in Mary Shelley's time, and also the interference with science that has led man to great destruction, as we are seeing in the current pandemic situation as well. So I would just like to conclude by saying that teachers in classrooms across the world are ill-equipped to handle the emotional and collective fallout among students whenever isms like racism or casteism are brought up as part of a debate. But a more mature discussion on such issues, on the other hand, makes the students appreciate their own and others' racial, ethnic identities and reduces cross-cultural tensions in the classroom. It is a productive and more aesthetic way of ensuring a discussion by following the reader response theory of Stanley Fish and applying his question, is there a text in this class, to feminist or post-colonial texts like Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale, or Chinua Achebe's Things Fall Apart, or Rushdie's Midnight's Children. And we are able to discover disturbing nuances in their understanding of self and society, which is very much relevant to the undercurrents of racial and casteist tensions in our classrooms. Here are, for example, two extracts, one from a critical essay by a Western writer and another from a short story by a Dalit woman writer. The essayist Eileen O'Neill writes, in her essay, the theme of rape is almost never treated from the point of view of the victim, nor is the anguish of a woman pressured into sexual service, nor the distress of a woman bound sexually and emotionally by her own internal sense of powerlessness. And look how our very own Tamil writer, Srimati Rajam Krishnan, in the novel Sethril Manitarkal, translates this beautifully into her story. You, deity of chastity, nobody will come to your rescue hearing your bawling. High caste women come to this lord with wanted interest. And you, a Harijan slut, what for are you making a big fuss? He left only after shattering her dreams and innocent fancies. What her tradition upholds as chastity was crushed, and she was thrown into a pit of abysmal indignity. So, to conclude, classrooms can have discussions of projects like writing poems, painting, discussing various works of literature like Octavia Butler's Parable of the Sower. Binaji mentioned Munshi Premchand's Doodh Ka Dam, another story. And here I would also suggest Doodh Ka Dam. And Takashi Shivshankar Pillai's The Scavenger's Son, You Are Anantamurti Samskara, Zora Neale Hurston's Their Eyes Were Watching God, Antozake Shange's For Colored Girls Who Have Considered Suicide When the Rainbow Is Enough, and Arundhati Roy's essay as well, where she describes the pandemic as a portal. It is a portal, a gateway between one world and the next. So these texts can be used in the classroom situation for depicting marginal communities and discussing ways out of the social conflicts that these communities continuously face. Thank you so much for listening to me, and I look forward to listening to everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mandakini. Being a teacher, I can associate with the fact that these discussions will really be fruitful to increase the awareness about what is faced by the marginal communities. Now we have Dr. Deepa Chandran Ram with us. Dr. Deepa Ram is an India-born Australian poet, writer, painter, lecturer, and scientist. She currently works for the Deakin College, Deakin University, Australia, and she is also a vocalist and a veena player. She was selected as one among the 5 best international poets of 2016 by the World Union of Poets and has innumerable publications of poems in many global anthologies, including the World Poetry Book and the World Peace Anthology. We welcome you, Dr. Deepa. Please share your views with us.
Thank you so much for this invitation. So this special thanks goes to Janay for inviting me to this. And as you all know, and from hearing from the other 3 panelists, so I feel like, you know, I'm a, well, I don't actually fit into this group because I'm basically a science person and not a literature person. It's just that I write poems. I hope you can hear me, right? Am I audible?
Yes, yes, ma'am. You're very much audible, very clearly.
Oh, thank you. So I'm basically a science person. So I've taken my my PhD from the Indian Space Research Organization, which is the Vikram Sarabhai Space Center. And then I moved to Australia, where I'm working for the Deakin University, where I teach science mainly and also do research in science education. So I'm more into science, and literature for me is like a reader. So I read a lot, and I write poems. It comes into my mind. So I'm basically an artistic person too. So I've got 2 faces. You know, sometimes I'm more artistic, and sometimes I'm more of a science person. But you know, at the end of the day, I feel like science and art is the 2 faces of the same coin. You know, it's like it's inseparable. Basically, when it comes to the deep-rooted place from where science and art comes from or sprouts from, you feel that it's all different parts of or different versions of you yourself. So so I don't find a separation between the 2. So I always kind of links the 2. I'm also an artist. I have I paint, and I have participated in many international festivals, even the New York Art Festival. And I write poems, it's all. Okay, so basically I'm going to talk to you as a reader, and I don't think I can, I can be like a researcher in literature, like other three panelists have been talking about, okay? And thanks, Mandagini, for giving me a break, because I thought that I'm going to be the third speaker, but it saved me. And oh, good, yeah. So I'll just talk about my perception of how literature is a consequence of the social reality, or how social reality can be a consequence of literature. So it's just my perception. So, and so I will be talking in just layman terms, and I can't be using all these big literature terms like you guys use. Okay. So we know that we grew up hearing stories and telling stories, and for us it's like the fantasy stories that we have heard at bedtime. So our parents and grandparents have recited fantasy stories to us, and we grew up that way. And then later, when we develop our own social skills, we learn more about literature. So literature is more about empathy, about humanity, and how all these will help us to, or it's our ability to deal with the social happenings or the social issues that's happening around us. So in that context, for me, literature, or any creative art for that matter, is a manifestation of life itself. So anything and everything that happens around us unknowingly or spontaneously would become a subject for our creative expression. So that happens in my art, that happens in my poems. And maybe it's because I've got a lot of empathy in me, and then I'm not able to keep quiet, or I'm not able to put down my pen because I want to write about it. So that's how social issues affect me. And so it's just an expression. So it could be that expression could be as a written language, as in a poetry, or it could be like a figurative art, or it could be like a character study, or it could be like a movie or a theater or a dance form, or a folk dance or a folk form, or a piece of music even. So for me, social reality is there in every creative piece that I come through. And I'm also into music because my mom is a musician, and I practice Carnatic music. I'm still with a guru here, and also teach Veena for small students. So, so it's like, for me, social reality is everything, which is a manifestation of life itself, and literature carries that social reality through us. And it also helps us to learn about the history. So what has happened in the past and how it has molded the future for us. So all the pandemics that we have survived, all the wars that we have waged, so everything is a part of literature. So for example, like in Mark Twain's works express the racism that prevailed at that time. Geoffrey Chaucer's The Canterbury Tales clearly says about that, or picturizes how England looked like in the 14th century. And then The Animal Farm by George Orwell gives the first-hand experience of the rise of communist Russia, and the fear and the insecurity that it has put on the people, on the society at that time. So such is the power of language. That's what I think about. And as a poet, I would say that, for me, creative expression is like a paintbrush. So it's like you can make thick and thin lines, you can make straight lines, you can make curved ones, or you can have layers about layers about layers about all these layers, putting one on other, embedded, giving a different hue or a different depth to that whole picture. So all these been made from the colors that's there on my palette of emotions and social perceptions. So when I talk about perceptions again, I feel that the whole of the social reality is all about the perceptions. It could be individual perception of truth, or it could be a collective perception of truth, or maybe there's no truth at all. All right, so we even come across surrealistic art forms. So it's about how we understand the particular piece of creative art. And so everything that is a basic root of survival and that is under the clutches of the society is what we call a social reality. So it's diversity and oneness at the same time. Or you can say that it is an individual thought and provoking a collective thought. So it's like, what do you call, a creative artist, maybe a writer, an author, his or her individual thought or his individual arguments, I would say arguments, and that's been put as a poetic piece or a piece of literature or a piece of dance form, whatever, and then it's been put into the public. So it's been aired into the public and people react to it. So people react to such social issues and they also have empathy. So it becomes a collective empathy. And then maybe the governance may not be able to be blind to such happenings in these literature pieces. So they have to react to it. And maybe that happens that might lead to a refinement of society or a reformation of society. And we have seen in history that all the reformations that have happened in the society basically started from literature pieces, I would say, good literatures. So for example, I can say about John Milton's poems have political scenarios throughout in them. Sylvia Plath is my favorite, one of my favorite writer. And in her poems, you can find that, she dislikes society like anything. So I basically felt that she dislikes the norms, the ethics, the morals, the values that the society, all of that. And again, writings of Jane Austen, Emily Brown, so all these writers, they use that for women's issues, and maybe they started the whole of the feministic movement. So they have helped in promoting this feministic movements. And you might have read the book The Train to Pakistan by Khushwant Singh, and in that how we see revolutionaries being targeted as criminals. And so all these are examples of how the what do you call it, the social issues leading to refinement. To conclude, I would say that literature is a mirror of society as depicted knowingly or unknowingly or spontaneously by the author, but it helps to instigate critical thinking and help to cultivate a good collective thought. And that can help to reframe the society or reform the society. So I think recently many social activists use literature as a tool to air contemporary social issues that need immediate attention so that the public takes it up. We have the media now that puts their head in everything, and the public takes it up, and then the government can't stay silent to such issues, and they have to take a stand. And then that happens. That's how the refining of the society happens, according to me. Yeah, so they're mutually responsible. Literature and social reality are mutually responsible for each other, and they trigger each other for the betterment of human mankind. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Deepa ma'am.
Thank you.
And now we have some distinguished guests with us. So Professor Patrick Lord is not.
I think he's not there.
Yes.
Please invite Ananta Giri.
Yes.
Dr. Ananta Giri.
Dr. Ananta Giri from Chennai. He is a professor at the Madras Institute of Studies, Chennai. His research interests are new horizons of human development and social transformations, religion and spiritual mobilizations. He is also involved in criticism, creativity, and the contemporary dialectics of transformations. We are glad to have you here with us, sir, and we now invite you to please share your views about the topic.
For his brief comments.
Yes, yes.
Thank you so much, Asuji. Thank you, Dr. Anand, and dear and esteemed friends. With your generosity, my humble brief submission may be between 5 and 7 to 10 minutes. I request your generosity, and I wish to join this very deep journey of co-thinking with this theme, literary creation, literary co-creation, social reality, and contemporary global human condition. With a poem, with a line from Sri Aurobindo's epic Savitri, where he is writing, "Ascend, O soul, into the timeless self, into thy timeless self. Choose destiny's curve and stamp thy will on time." And this line of Sri Aurobindo.
Please be a little loud. A little loud.
Yeah. Now, this line of Sri Aurobindo, "Choose destiny's curve and stamp your will," is a fundamental critique of a mirror image of literature and society. And this also can be accompanied by philosophical reflection on the contemporary pandemic by my friend Ramin Jahan Baglo, who in his recent book, The Courage to Exist, he writes that the cruelty of fate of social realism, for example, has to be overcome by the tenacity, and I would like to put it this way, the daily sadhana and struggle of wisdom. Therefore, dear friends, literary creation is literary co-creation, which also involves resistance and transformation. And here Chittaranjan Das, a critical thinker and artist of life from Odisha, he says, "A genuinely committed writer is never on the side of the establishment." Because, dear friends, when we are talking about social realism, as already has been suggested by my esteemed co-panelists, social realism is multidimensional. And the challenge before us is to be on the side of a realism of affirmation, a realism of co-creation against the realism of domination, humiliation, and destruction. It is in this context, joining thinking about realism, I would like to pose that the very idea of social reality has to be opened up from its closed and boxed nature and has to be linked with both nature and divine. Realism, therefore, has to be understood as a simultaneous journey of immanence and transcendence. At the same time, the idea of realism and magic realism that Professor Roy was hinting at, and I would like to submit that magic realism and realism, magic realism as a reference to Toni Morrison's beloved community, in the Indian context also, we would have to walk and meditate with writers like Professor Manoj Das, and a different notion of magic realism where the transcendental is walking with our bare feet. It is in this context, literary critic Geeta Chandra, in her work on magic realism, she is saying that magic realism continues the same representational view of reality, but the reality is of the other world. But the question before us also is to question the representational view of reality and embrace a non-representational view. At the same time, realism works with translation. And I would like to say that the imaginative translation that happens between reality and a subtler reality, but that translation also happens among cultures. And therefore, dear friends, I would like to bring the idea of social realism, a notion of moving translation across cultures and civilization. The great philosopher and theologian Raimundo Panikkar, who being a Catholic, and our friends are from Banarasi, Dr. Bina Singh and Raimundo Panikkar lived in Banarasi and wrote a book on the Vedas called the Vedic Mantra Manjari. So he is developing a notion of diatopial hermeneutics, where we put our feet on different cultures. Developing that, I am developing a notion of multi-topial hermeneutics. Therefore, to be real, to resist the tyranny of the real, we would have to move across different terrains. And therefore, our respected Dr. Mandakini, when she is bringing the struggle for freedom in the Afro-American life world, the Dalit women in India, and here we can remember Maheshweta Devi, and also many other writers, Prem Chand. Now, to understand the work of Ananta Murthy, Maheshwata Devi, and Chittaranjan Das from Odisha, who wrote a book called Brahma Tatilani Pada. It is the Brahma which is heated up. We need a category of luminous anger. Therefore, it is not just the soft rasa, just the Santa rasa. We also need the courage to be angry. And it is that anger, angry with the realist real, that creates the possibility for transformation. Philosophically speaking, I would like to also bring science and spirituality as a partner in unmasking the real and moving from real to realization of potential. Science, philosophy, and literature becoming our co-workers in the realization of the potential. It is in this context we would have to move from a positivist understanding of social real to post-positivist turn. And here we have three important movements: the feminist movement, the ecological movement, and also linguistic turn, the significance of language. And to this, we also need to add the onto-decolonial term that my friend Sabelo from South Africa has developed. So we need to bring these four movements together: the ecological mobilization, the feminist mobilization, where feminism is not only for the women, it is for our human condition, and the linguistic turn, where language is not just a form of life, but as Martin Heidegger says, language is a way-making movement. Heidegger also writes, it is not poetry which mirrors history, but poetry is the foundation of history. It is in the same spirit, the great philosopher Charles Taylor from Canada says that poetry has a performative force. But what is that performative force? That performance is not the reproduction of the existing reality of tyranny, for example, the caste system or the race system or the gender domination. It is the performation like the Lord Shiva and Ma Parvati doing the Tandava and the Kausiki dance. It is the rotating the pyramid. So it is in that spirit, I also want to say that in order to understand reality, we need to bring reason and intuition together. The great thinker Gregory Bateson, in his Steps to an Ecology of Mind, says that when reason is delinked from modes of engagement such as art and aesthetics, it leads to a profound epistemological mistake, and I would like to call as a pathology of reason and soul. It is in this context when we are talking about the real, we also have to derealize ourselves. My respected friend, Professor Anand Kashyap from Jaipur, in a very important work, he writes, empirical reality is derealized at the level of altered consciousness, adding a third dimension of centrovertedness to one's personality, a dimension of egoless self, more creative than the self with a pronounced ego and its myopic perceptions. Reference was mentioned, talked about perception. Therefore, how do we derealize ourselves so that we have a new sense of center, and that center is not ego? Finally, very quickly, in the next few minutes, 2 to 3 minutes, I would like to offer that the whole idea of reality via both appreciation and resistance and satyagraha and reconstitution would have to realize reality as co-realization. And on the way, we would have to bring critical realism, as discussed by the great philosopher and my friend Roy Bhaskar, and magic realism and empirical realism together. Now, realization, reality as co-realization involves both arna and ananda, both food and freedom. A very quick remembrance of the great dialogue during the freedom struggle, the dialogue between Gandhi and Rabindranath about the purpose of literature. And Tagore is saying, "Oh Gandhi, you do not see the joy of the bird flapping their wings in the morning." And Gandhi is saying, "Dear Gurudev, yes, I have the same poetic soul as you, but I also know many birds who cannot flap their wings. It is therefore, dear friend, how do we realize reality with both the bird who can fly and the bird who cannot fly because of lack of food?" As discussed by our great friend Dr. Mandakini during the lockdown Holocaust. Similarly, reality is both real and constructed. It is both subjective and objective, time being sought. I want to suggest that reality involves transpositional subjective objectivity. Co-realization also involves a dynamic configuration of three guna, sattva, raja, tama, and how co-realization is to work with the tamasic and rajasic element of life, like darkness, ignorance, and the concentration of killing power. And working with that, how do we unfold the sattva? And also, very important, realization involves realizing the noun and verb dimension of reality. As students of literature, now we are responsible custodians of the word. But the word that we are using, if it is a prisoner of the noun, and that too possessive noun and pronoun, it is my India. But if my India as a noun does not embody the dynamic co-realization of India out of confluence of Vedic civilization, Greek civilization, Arabic civilization, without Islamic contribution, where is contemporary India? Therefore, linguistically and as an art of life, would have to embody noun and verb, drawing inspiration from the deep thoughts of philosophers like David Bohm, who interestingly was a physicist, who in his dialogue with Krishnamurti is writing, the subject-verb-object structure of language with its constituted worldview tends to impose itself very strongly in our speech. Therefore, as poets, we have to understand the difference between it is raining and the rain is going on. And we know that both in Hebrew language and in Panini's Ashtadhyay, the primal linguistic formation is the verb. And therefore, how do we have an engagement with the real as the poet and also students of social science, where we embody both noun and verb, where realization, literary creation becomes a dynamic movement of meditative verbs of co-realization. But that involves memory work, because we have forgotten that art of combining noun and verb and then moving that into a spiraling evolutionary transformation. Finally, I would like to conclude that it then, as poets, it is an invitation for us to rethink language, not only as an object, but creating a new language. Very quickly, in half a second or half a minute, I want to read this poem in Odia, where it is written. I will translate it. He bandhu kahilo tume amaro eke nua bhasha luda, shabdara sadhana au jibana tapasya. এই ভাষা ବିଜୟର ନୁହେଁ ବା ଆତ୍ମ ପ୍ରଚାରର, ଏହା ମଧ୍ୟ ନୁହେଁ ପ୍ରଳୟର, এই ଭାଷା ସାଙ୍ଗ ହୋଇ ବାଟ ଚାଲିବାର. Oh friend, you told we need a new language, a new sadhana with word and a tapasya of life. This language is not the language of victory, nor it is for self-aggrandizement, nor it is of the apocalypse. It is a language of working together and dreaming together. And Finally, I would like to conclude as Dr. Veena Singh concluded with Swami Vivekananda. I could not resist my temptation to bring Swami Vivekananda and Sri Aurobindo together, where Sri Aurobindo is writing, "A lonely freedom cannot satisfy a heart that has grown one with every other heart. I am a deputy of an aspiring world. My spirit's liberty I ask for all." Thank you for your kind co-presence and participation.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nantagiri. So multiple views shared on the social reality topic. I now hand over the stage to Parneet Jaggi ma'am to conclude the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Ankita. And thank you, Professor Giri, for that wonderful lecture that talked of accentuation of language as an instrument that could be proclaimed with a joyous defiance, and that could work for a more nobler purpose than just aggrandization or for talking just about one's own self. Thank you for that. Thank you all the other guests and panelists. And thank you, Daniela, for being there. And we'll be inviting you in the poetry session, which is just about to begin. Now, for the next session, I am feeling delighted to invite Professor Mandakini Bhattacharya on the virtual stage once again. You people are already familiar with her. She's just talked. We've heard her discussion in the panel that was enthused with fervor and that brought out texts that were relevant and pertinent to the thread of discussion. So Professor Mandakini Bhattacharya will be taking up this poetry session of the day. She is an associate professor of English. She is also a multilingual poet writing in English, Hindi, Punjabi, and Bengali. Not just a poet, she is also a literary critic and translator. And right now, I'm inviting her to be the curator of the day. So welcome, Mandakini. Take over the poetry session, please.
Thank you so much. It is an honor to be speaking in front of all you invited guests, assembled guests, and you have been so very patient with all of us. Such an honor to be presenting this session, and I look forward to hearing all my guest poets. Just a second. I was a little bit lax in that. I hope I'm audible. And welcome to all my guest poets, and I would be looking forward to listening to them all. And without much ado, let me start this session. I would just like to say, what is poetry? What is poetry but a tar brush to paint the soul blacker, along with my face, from which two slits as eyes peer out? What is poetry? What is poetry but whitewash to disguise the blemishes, black purple calluses over which you ride, slipshod, distraught? What is poetry? What is poetry but a clown trying to become coquette, knowing you prefer lily white faces, nipped waist, and pink pout? Well, that is my very dark view of poetry, comes from the dark spaces within, but I'm sure you would all have very illuminating aspects of poetry also to discuss. And I would welcome all my guest poets today, and I would request them to present only one poem. On another occasion, I'm sure we will all gather around and listen to more of your poems. So I invite my first guest. Is he here? Sijo Joseph Chenenel, sir, is he present?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, sir. So welcome, sir. And
thank you so much.
Welcome, sir. It's wonderful to see you. Sijo Joseph Chenenel, sir, is a lover of literature who devotes his time for the greater good and the betterment of literary endeavors. His hobby is all about critically analyzing the poems of various poets. It has become a passion for him. Besides, he's an English teacher who has been proving his mettle in the teaching profession for the last 18 years. At present, he's the head of the English department at Krishtu Jyoti College, Changanesseri, Kottayam, Kerala. So we are waiting eagerly to hear your poem. Thank you so much.
Okay, good evening to all of you. First of all, I would like to thank dear Janayal sir for having given me an opportunity to use this platform. Since I came to know about him, he has been an inspiration to me. Thank you very much, sir, for everything. I'm eternally indebted to you. I don't want to say anything about my poem. I will read out the poem, but I would like to say, this poem is all about the pandemic, and we needed to have a paradigm shift, especially a paradigm shift from an anthropocentric development process to a ecocentric development process to ensure the sustainability of the Mother Earth. That is the need of the hour, and that can only enable us to hand over this beautiful planet, this beautiful planet to our posterity the way we have got it. So to the poem as such, without further ado, I will just get into the poem. Pandemic-ridden world. The stricken multitudes wade through a cesspool to reach the shore of peace. Still there is no respite in sight as of now. The midnight emergencies rudely shake, all from various quarters, striving to be the first on the line, but often expectations are belied. The motion of waiting is repeatedly applied to complete the journey from life to death, with so many bottlenecks thrown at the pathways. The equitable way in which this marauding foe hard at work is so baffling, and in front of it many top-notch sensations are toppled. Still the dry day is an unattainable dream, having a swinging motion from top to bottom, and everything converges to that saturation point. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, sir. This was a wonderful depiction, a very poignant depiction of the pandemic truths. And as Don Marquis has said, poetry is truth in its Sunday clothes. So, well, we are on a Saturday, we are listening to each other. And yes, you make this so beautiful with your poem, so beautiful and yet so poignant. Thank you so much, sir. And our next, thank you, sir. Our next guest poet here is Dr. Daniela Marian. She's from Rosnov in Romania. She's present, I think. Yes, ma'am, I can see you. She's a poet and a painter since childhood. She has published sets of poems through the National Library of Romania with ISBN, is also in literary circles in magazines and anthologies in the country and abroad. She's an advocate of ecology, of child and animal rights. Professor Dr. Daniela Marian also works at the University of Medicine and Pharmacy and likes to volunteer in various medical activities and to engage with medical statistics. Her motto is to contribute to the development of national and international culture and world peace. Ma'am, we look forward to hearing your poem.
Okay, my poem.
Look at the horizon. You were born from the sea breeze. You smiled until you fell fast asleep. Your cheeks flashed. You were like a star described by the great genius Mihai Eminescu. It inspired me to write to you. I watched you from the moonlight at the demiurge, on the Milky Way. Don't worry when you wake up. Look at the horizon. The sun is coming to hug you. Do great things. The power is in you. Thank you, Professor Dr. Janelle Arnold, for your wonderful collaboration. He was considered a global mentor. Thank you very much, dear moderator and dear poets, for these wonderful moments spent with you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Daniela Marian. Those were very beautiful words, and that was a very beautiful poem. And I referred to Mary Shelley, and I'll refer now to Percy Bysshe Shelley. He reminds me of your poem when I heard your poem, that poetry lifts the veil from the hidden beauties of the world and makes familiar objects be as if they were not familiar. So you made the familiar objects in your poem seem so beautiful, far away and exotic, yet so heart-wrenching. Thank you, Dr. Daniela. I will now welcome our next guest poet, who is Dr. Basudev Paul. Dr. Basudev Paul has been an in-service teacher in English with 35 years of teaching experience. Dr. Basudev Paul, we have him here.
Yes, I have been here.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Basudev Paul has been associated with the Parimal Mitra Smriti Mahavidyalaya of Malbazar in the district of Jalpaiguri in West Bengal, India, affiliated to the University of North Bengal. His poetry is a zam. His poetry is a zam, a sacred song of his life, realized at the gloaming of his career. He's a widely anthologized poet. And Dr. Paul, we so eagerly look forward to hearing your poem. Please, sir.
Thank you, Mandagini, a dignified lady. You are nicely emceeing the entire event. Thank you. Before I say anything, I should like to begin with the Cordiality quote, willing suspension of disbelief. Yes. I say, Dr. Jarnal Singh Anand, he approached me with a questionnaire when he was proposing an anthology, most probably Postmodern Voices, Volume 3rd. After getting the questionnaire, I said, sir, will it be possible for me to answer all these questions? He quipped, I read your bio. I instantly realized his sagacity with full academic underpinning. I am grateful to him for inviting me, and I do not have acquaintance, but this opportunity will definitely open up a new avenue for getting me introduced in course of time. Now, before the recital of my two short poems, I won't take more than 5 minutes. I am from Malbazar. Our location is covered by tea gardens. It's a beautiful topography, and this is popularly known as chicken necks of Northeast and covered by different countries, Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, China. Strategically, this has immense importance so far defense activities are concerned, especially after 1962 Chinese aggression. Okay, now I would like to read my two short poems. The first one is, The Man is Carefree. This poem affected me after reading the Edward Albee's Juice story. Jerry is the character that affected my whole being, and that prompted my impulses to compose a short poem on it. The title of the poem, The Man is Carefree. The man is hounded anymore. He finds his last home under the derelict den of a mango tree. He sleeps well, sanks in anxiety, unfazed and undone. He sleeps beyond domesticity. He is unfettered. His mouth is shut for another birth. Like a pregnant roe, he lies calmly. The next one, You Disturb Me. Actually, while sending these poems, I never think of it. I randomly send these two poems. Anyway, hopefully you will enjoy my poems. The title of the poem, You Disturb Me. Words don't come out easily. Expression gibbers at failure. Dented field comes sharper. Visual could not prevent a joke. Inner stocks boil for your name. What hell on earth silences me? It makes me vocal, stronger. No strength is just marring me. The name appears bewitching. Ivory room, apart I come down. On the kacha path of memory, I want a permanent moorings. Thank you. Thank you, Journal Singh Anand. Thank you. Namaskar.
Thank you. Those were such beautiful pieces. And as Horace had famously said, poetry is like a painting. With some you have to stand close to appreciate, and with some you have to stand at a distance to appreciate. So both these poems give rise to many wonderful images in our mind. And thank you, Basudevji, for sharing these wonderful poems. But as they were very short, yes, you could read two, but I would request everyone to keep to one poem. And I'm sure Jarnail Singh ji will treat us to much longer times in later conferences. I would now invite our dear guest, Eva Petropoulou-Lanoy, ma'am. And she has been commenting, writing, appreciating all our endeavors. And thank you so much, Eva, ma'am. She was born in Xylocastro in Greece. Eva, ma'am, initially loved journalism, and in 1994, she worked as a journalist for the French newspaper Le Libre Journal. But her love for Greece won her over, and she returned to her homeland in 2002. She has published several books and e-books such as Geraldine and the Lake Elf in English, French, as well as The Daughter of the Moon in Greek English. Her works have been included in the Greek Encyclopedia Harris Patsis. Her books have been approved by the Ministry of Education and Culture of Cyprus. She promotes the work of Greek poets and is a member of the Association Alia Mundi Serbia, the International Society of Writers and Artists of Greece, and the Piraeus Society of Letters and Arts, as well as the Corinthian Writers Society. Eva Petropoulou-Lanoy, ma'am, we are so eager to listen to your poem.
Thank you so much. Namaste. Thank you, and hello from Greece. I am a poet and a children literary author. I thank you, Dr. Jarnail Anand, for inviting me, and I want to congratulate all the distinguished speakers that they really make a point in what it is literature, and I appreciate. I have a lot of questions now in my mind, and I'm really inspired. I will read a poem. I call it the new poem. I need to write a poem that will serve as peacekeeper between the God and humanity, between the brothers and sisters, between myself and my mood. I need to find the verses, be completely different from the past, and so new to fit in the present. Need to have one truth, justified and accepted. Need to write a new poem, a new story, a new book about the life. Every single day, it's a new discovery. People become evil. Failure earned in so many levels, and love is replaced with food. People are divided between those who love the food, between those who love humanity. I need to write a poem about the fear and the dark, but many of stars are shining, so much not afraid of darkness, but definitely need to reorganize in our mind what the unknown is like. People are divided between the love and the food. People are divided between those who love the food and those who love humanity. I believe it's difficult to think with a stomach full. People forgot to love, and they become slaves of their stomach, little servants of this great stomach. They cannot feel anything. Poetry unites people. Poetry travels more fast than the unknown words that remain unborn in the mind of an author. I need to write a poem about the happiness, the smile of children. I need to write a poem. The journey never ends. Who is the captain of this boat? Thank you so much. Congratulations to everyone. Namaste.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much. Poetry, is said is to be a fine art, and in fact, it's the easiest to dabble in, but perhaps the hardest to reach true excellence in. And ma'am, your verses were a lesson in how to write good poetry. Thank you so much, Eva ma'am, for joining us this evening. I now welcome our next guest poet, who is Nizar Sartawi sir. And sir is a Palestinian poet and translator committed to building bridges between nations of the globe through poetry and translation. Sartawi sir is a member of various international literary and cultural organizations. He has participated in many Arab and international literary conferences and poetry festivals in Jordan, Palestine, Lebanon, Kosovo, Morocco, Egypt, India, Dubai, and Sharjah. God, I'm getting goosebumps because so much Israel and Palestine are so much in the news and always, and I'm getting goosebumps just to think you are going to talk to us about these places. Sartawi sir has published more than 30 books. His poetry and translations have been anthologized and published in numerous international literary journals and magazines, and has been translated into more than a dozen languages. He was awarded the first prize in translation by Al Noor Literary Organization in 1913, the Nazi Naman Award for Creativity in 2018, and the Jerusalem Intellectuals Forum Honorary Award in 2019. I present Shri Nizar Sartawi to all of you. Sir, with your poem, please.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Let me start with a few words. Dr. General Anand, conference chairman, Professor Mandakani Atashiria, am I getting this right? Anchor person, and distinguished professors, poets and guests. Greetings from Amman, Jordan. That's where I'm staying right now. Yes. I think I can say that poets are the moving trees on this earth. But if trees disappear, who will give us the air to breathe, the fragrance to smell, beauty to see, and the songs to listen to? Who will inspire us with the amazing ideas in which we feed our minds, hearts, and souls? You, poets, are the makers of love, peace, and beauty. Now, I'd like to stretch the metaphor of the tree a little. I think there are, and there will always be a few poets on this earth who can be described not just as a tree, but as a forest. Such were Homer, Shakespeare, Goethe, Yeats, Lorca, Tagore, Neruda, to name just a few. And allow me to add, such is our great, generous, inspired, and inspiring host, Dr. Anand, who has given us the opportunity to meet with you, distinguished guests, and poets from all over the world. I thank again Dr. Anand, the organizing committee who have made it possible for us to meet today. I hope our next conference will be actual when the world defeats this evil pandemic, COVID-19, and all its associates. Now,
welcome. You are most welcome, sir. Most welcome.
Thank you.
Very glad.
Now I move to. Thank you very much, Dr. Anand. And I move now to my poem, The Bedouin's Song. You know, Bedouin in Arabic, Badawi is a nomad. Tribes usually move together, but this is a solitary Bedouin, and that's his song. And he is a poet in his own right. I'm just a Bedouin. I live in a tent, cozy and fair, its fabric woven from rough goat hair, a shady cover in the summer, a rain-proof shelter in the winter. My positions, a single garment, a loose black robe I call a thobe, a pair of worn-out sandals, a coffee kit, and other little things I put in a sack that may not fit with countrysiders' appetites or urbanites. My homeland, all this in its infinite expanse of deep beige sands. My sole companion, a faithful camel who carries me and all my stuff. Together we cross the endless desert. And when I sing some cameleer song, he gets so light out of delight and makes as if to fly towards the blue sky. Thank you so much. Love you all.
That was so wonderful. There are pictures in poems and there are poems in pictures. And thank you for painting such a beautiful a picture of the Bedouin for us. Thank you so much, Nizar Sartawi, sir. And I now invite our next guest poet. You have already heard him. You have been floored by his erudition. And I would now invite Professor Anantakumar Giri to present a poem. He has had a PhD in anthropology from the Johns Hopkins University in the USA, from where he did also his MA in anthropology, and he did his MA in sociology before that in '86 from the Delhi School of Economics, where he was awarded with a gold medal. He currently works as the professor of Madras Institute of Development Studies, and his research interests are varied. He researches on new horizons of human development and social transformations in India and the world, on religious, spiritual mobilizations and social transformations, on social theory, social movements, creative transformations in education, philosophy, and literature. And as you have already known, he's a widely read man. So I welcome Professor Anant Giri to come up and delight us with his poem. Professor Giri.
Thank you so much. With my heart, Dr. Mandakini. And I'm also grateful to Dr. Anand, Ranveer, Eva. I would like to say Afaristo, and also to our great friend Nijar, Sukran. And when I was listening to Dr. Nijar's poem, I was also remembering Antonio de Saint-Exupéry's book, The Wisdom of the Saint. So with that and with gratitude, I offer these lines, and it goes like this. I am a bird, B-U-D, a bird, a tree. My roots go deeper. My branches strive towards the sun. Birds blossom in my branches. I live life in branching, embracing earth and ether, human and divine, my fellow beings. I live in Kalesiki, a town in Poland. I work in the library. I hold books near my chest. I sleep and walk with books, books as bridges between earth and heaven, between men and women. I am a police girl. My books make me cosmic. And this is the last section. Today is my birthday. In my birthday, I translate not only verses, but messages from the earth and the sky, from sighs and cries, from trees, men and women. I live in translation. Translation makes me reborn as a new composition of commons, a new bird of co-creation, a new birth of co-realization.
Wonderful, sir. Wonderful. Thank you so much. And in prose goes on describing till the very last line, but poetry stops just short of it. It stops short of spelling everything out clearly. And what wonderful clues and hints you left in your poem for us to decipher for a long, long time. Thank you so much, Professor Giri. And I would now invite our next guest poet, Professor Rajendra K. Padhi. He's present with us here today, and he has been contributing for the enrichment of Indian writing in English. Professor Padhi is mentioned in Writing in English India 2, Writing in English 2 in India for his poetic contributions. He's the recipient of the International Poetry Award Universal Inspirational Poet in Accra, Africa, where he was felicitated by the Office of the Honorable President of the Ghana Republic. His poems have been featured in more than 70 anthologies from different countries of the world. He has written 5 books, 4 poetry collections, 1 English novel, a versatile artist, and he has translated into English the biography of Saint Arakita Das and Mahimandal Gita from Odia. He's the editor of 8 internationally published books and has been interviewed by various international journals, and his interviews have also been telecast from USA, Africa, and India. He's the recipient of many awards by poetry forums, and of course, he's our valued poet today. I would just request someone's mic has been unmuted. And if you could, everyone, thank you so much for this cooperation. And we are looking forward to Sir Rajendra K. Padhi to read his poem to us. Sir, please grace us with your poem.
I extend hearty thanks to Professor Darna Sanan for inviting me to this session of the World Poetry Conference. I'm very thankful. Actually, I wanted to speak something on poetry, but I find that a lot of things have been discussed today on poetry. So it would be better I should read a poem, recite a poem of my own. This poem, broken into colors of a rainbow. Broken into colors of a rainbow. I am hidden for a while from the eyes of time. I am hidden for a while from the eyes of time, verily acting as present, though it is not true. I am hidden for a while from the eyes of time, verily acting as present, though it is not true. Past has wheels and tricks in fleeting steeds, but stays along with me when I grow old. All the flowers now bloom in the arid plain. All the flowers now bloom in the arid plain, tinting it the orange red of the sunny days. I play a dulcet tune in my old flute, forget the wind crying to carry me far. Hours are very sweeter. Hours are sweeter than wine in this dreary hour. Hours are sweeter than wine in this dreary hour. Surge and sput, feelings as nectar. The heart, like a swan, dances on its waves, sweeps me away somewhere under the stars. Now I look at my many worlds I lived. Now I look at my many worlds I lived. Search for meaning, what my life is. Now I look at my many worlds I lived. Search for meaning in my sunset sky. Things are lovelier, my heart hold dear. I am not afraid of me in forsaken days. My life is broken into colors of a rainbow. My life is broken into colors of a rainbow, born from swift winged rain and sun. Born from swift winged rain and sun, though it will vanish in the clouds of time, hopefully keep shining in rainy nights. Thank you everyone. So actually I had told Professor Journalist Anand that I'll be speaking something on poetry, but I have been listening that a lot of things have been discussed on poetry. So poetry is nothing but a little story of our heart. It is when we are living in a modern world, we are really very happy that we do not have any cultural limitations. We are living in a world where boundaries are not important. So today we are gathered around the world by the efforts of Professor Journalist Anand, who has been my good old friend, my elder brother, and I had also invited him to some poetry festival in Odisha, and we are very good friends, and he's my guide, and I have my great respect for inviting me to this this World Poetry Conference. So I extend my hearty gratitude to everyone. I extend also my thanks to our everyone, those who are organizing this wonderful poetry session. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Pandey. You are here at last. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, Dr. Padi. And what wonderful lines. I am comfortable with me. And then that other line of beautiful motion, my heart dances like swans on the water. What wonderful lines, what wonderful motion and fluidity. And I would here request all of you to give a big round of applause by just clapping your hands for Dr. Janelle Singh Anand, for our wonderful host, for Parneet ji, for Ankita, Ashu, and for all the organizers of the World Poetry Conference 3rd edition. And congratulations, everyone, and a big round of applause for everyone here. Thank you so much. And so I would just seek to make the mood. Thank you, sir. I would just seek to make the mood a little light. And here is one of Lawrence Stern's anecdotes from Tristram Shandy. Somebody asks him in Tristram Shandy, the narrator is asked, "Sir, what is poetry?" And the speaker replies, "Why, sir, it is much easier to say what it is not. We all know what light it is, but it is not easy to tell what it is." So like that, poetry can be heard, enjoyed, but cannot be described fully, however much one attempts to. On that note, I would welcome our next guest poet. She is Suchismita Ghoshal, and from Malda, West Bengal. She is an internationally acclaimed and published poet, professional writer, scribbler, book critic, columnist, former copy editor at Notion Press Publishing, nature lover and a change agent, and former worldwide ambassadors coordinator for the Global Youth Leaders Network. She enjoys working as a manager at Pen Brew Publishers. Suchismita also aims to heal people with the majesty of her words, and her environmental activism is reflected in the name of her debut book, Fields of Sonnet. And I'm reminded of Toru Dutt's works, Sheaf Gathered in French Fields. And her recent releases are Poetries in Quarantine and Emotions and Tantrums. So I would welcome Suchismita here to present her poem before us.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for such a warm welcome. Very good afternoon, very good evening. Very good evening to all the eminent poets and dignitaries. I am feeling very much grateful to take part in this World Poetry Conference and paying my gratitude to Janelle Anand sir and as well as other respected members. So I will start with my poetry. The title is I Want to Taste Winter with You. I want to taste winter with you. Chocolate kisses and orange smiles. Hot aromatic coffees and soothing hugs. Winter gives me a strange comfort, as if it brings out the warmth long suppressed in my heart. Cold fingers cupped in your palms. Happily snuggle the flame of security. Winter tastes like you have owned me after a 11/11 wish turned true. Winter tastes like a fresh homecoming after a tiring span of emotional pandemonium. I want to taste winter with you when the falling snow kisses our cheeks and entangled us enjoy the slow assimilation of love. I shall be resting my head in your chest and make your puddings in the chilly mornings. I can carry your beguiling smile to draw stars on a foggy night. You are verdant, you are blue, and I want to see you on a charismatic street, shimmering like the Christmas lights. I want to taste winter with you as your presence will melt my heart. And you will erase my breath. I want to taste winter with you when our eyes will cocoon the miracles of our wonderful spring and our soul will save the amusement of today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Suchismita. That was wonderful. And it's raining here and it's not a very quite cold here too. So I would appreciate a bit of your winter delicacies here as well. I love those chocolates. So poetry.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you. Poetry should be vital. Poetry should be stirring our blood, or it should be able to take our breath away. And my God, how moved I was with that beautiful sensory poem. Thank you so much.
And I surprise us actually.
Exactly, sir.
With their
Thank you so much, sir.
They're so fresh and lively. They're so full of vitality, sir. Thank you. So I see Manjula ji here. Welcome, Manjula ji, to this poetry session. Thank you, Suchismita. And I would now welcome our next guest poet who has been there throughout in this creative journey with us. She has been encouraging us. Vandana Kumar is a middle school French teacher in New Delhi, India. She's an educator with over 20 years of experience and also a French translator and recruitment consultant. Her poems have been published in various national and international journals and websites like Mads World, Toronto-based Scarlet Leaf Review, Philadelphia-based North of Oxford, UK-based Destiny Poets, the Lothlorien Poetry Journal, Madras Courier, Glow Mag, etc., and has also featured in anthologies like the Harbinger Asylum and the Kali Project. She has been part of the 2 projects of World Literature series on postmodern voices and critical thought launched by Dr. Jarnail Singh Anand. And she also writes articles on cinema that have appeared on websites and journals like Just Cinema, Daily Eye, the Free Press Journal, Bology.com, and Art Amour. So I welcome Vandana Kumar to present her poem to us. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you so much for such a generous and warm introduction. Thank you. Am I audible first?
Yes, ma'am.
Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
Yes, you are audible.
You're audible and visible, ma'am.
Yeah. So, okay, and my poems are very, very brief. So, am I entitled to poems? I won't go into long discourse, literary discourse, because you all have all done that bit so beautifully. And
sure, ma'am. Sure, if
yeah,
they're short.
So, yeah.
Sure,
yeah.
Thank you.
So, the first one is, this appeared last year in the Madras Courier, and they have a copyright, so I had to mention it in last year in July. Who shall inherit the earth? We made lists of things we inherited. Someone bought grandma's favorite recipe. Disinterested non-food is yours. Why grandpa never had recipes to bequeath? Was told he was the one who ensured plates filled with hot bread, Thanksgiving at the table. I was happy to have inherited an uncle's sense of humor, saying all that was inappropriate on age and sex, so timed to perfection. I remember a niece bought an old crossword book, an electric handloom of things and thoughts, of books that were banned, of long playing records, replete with scratches on roofs. Looking back from shoulders, there is just this much of a neck you can turn to see inheritances of sounds, of laughter, of similar shaped boxes. You wonder where they will be stored. Where will the fairy tales that originated in deep jungles go? Who will inherit an earth now that someone lit a match, now that its forests are on fire? Thank you. The second poem is titled Outsider and was published in the Spillwords. Have you ever felt strangely distant from yourself? from each and every part of your anatomy. You, the surgeon of your own surgery, spinal anesthesia, and you talk clinically about liver and intestine, dispassionate about the water in the lungs, feeling no pain at what the world injected into you, no remorse at what you did to the world either, marauding, crushing flowers, or people, or both, saying, I love you randomly, sanguine about the ones you say them to, that they are also observers, living outside of their hearts and their lungs. Thank you. Once again, Professor.
Wonderful, wonderful. I was reading your poems in the mail and I was so moved by the precision of the lines. And it said that every poem is at the bottom, nothing but the biography of a person. It's the life of a man or a woman. And what precision. I so admired your poems. Thank you so much, Vandana, for sharing them.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Janil Singh Anand, once again. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. And
very nice, very nice.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. May I continue? Yep. Okay. I'll invite our next guest poet, who is Vidya Shankar. Vidya Shankar, ma'am, is a widely published poet, Indian poet, writer, English teacher, and she calls herself, quote unquote, a book in the human library, a wonderful way to describe herself, and an editor with Kavya Adi Sakrit, an imprint of Adi Sakrit Publishing House. She says that poetry is not different from her. The author of 2 poetry books, The Flautist of Brindaranyam, in collaboration with her photographer husband, Shankar Ramakrishnan, and the other book is titled The Rise of Yoga Maya. She has received several literary awards and recognitions. She finds meaning to her life through yoga and mandalas. And we shall now welcome this very talented poet, Vidya Shankar ma'am, and listen to her poem. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Jarnail Singh ji and everyone else here, especially the speakers, for some enlightening thoughts on present-day literature. I go to my poem now. It's called Death. The foreboding I woke up with hung over me, a thick, heavy blanket. The new day seemed an uninvited guest I didn't want to meet. My body, leaden, wished not to encounter the amiss awaiting beyond the precincts of my bed. But I had to face the day. I woke up. Minutes later, the dread revealed itself. Our fridge of several years had died. What followed was a flurry of emotional uncertainty that accompanies death till logic and acceptance settles in. We had used our fridge well. It was time to let it go. By evening, a gleaming new appliance replaced the one that had died. The foreboding of the morning forgotten, life continued as ever. Why are the lives of loved ones irreplaceable? Thank you so much.
That was wonderful, and I was floored by your poem when I read it. It is so it's so modern and yet so eternal in its expression of death and the sense of loss. So reading a poem is like dropping a rose petal into the Grand Canyon and waiting for its echo to come up. So you need your audience to realize the resonances of your poem, but I'm sure we have a very appreciative audience here who are fine-tuned to all the resonances of these lovely poems. Thank you, Vidya Shankar ma'am, for that excellent, excellent poem. Welcome and thank you. And we now come to the last poet of this session. It is a joy to welcome Sucheta Sen Ghosh Roy, who is a teacher teaching English language and literature at high school. Sucheta Sen Ghosh Roy graduated from North Bengal University. She did her B.Ed from Kolkata, and she has been writing poems, stories, and non-fiction for the last few years. Most recently, her poems were published in Rendezvous of Words, and her short story, Leela from the Little Village, it was a delight to read it and edit it for the volume, The Mixed Fare, and it's going to come out soon in that forthcoming volume. And I congratulate Sucheta on her selection, and it has been already unveiled at World Poetry Conference 3rd edition. So I welcome here poet Sucheta Sen Ghosh Roy, with whom we will end this session of poetry. Welcome, ma'am, and please recite your poem.
Good evening, all. It's a delight to be here, and thank you, Dr. Journal and distinguished guests, and to be in this occasion of this World Poetry Conference. Here is one of my rendition on the present day situation, that is the pandemic. Existence, my poem Existence. Reality hits hard. The gnawing flesh of the man, the pestilence, the disease carrier, all carries his world into an episode. The watching shadow of humanity can't ignore the reality, the ongoing crisis, the dwindling faith in existence, the cruel truth of severe hardship of the fellow beings, the revenge of pitiful existence, the killing of perseverance, the killing of learnings. Revenge has no endings. The sustenance of dignity, creating an ordeal of endeavor. Man can only show the path of a better existence to humanity. Cruelty cannot give way to dignity, but persistence alone can give vent to a better world. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. That was lovely. Sucheta, it has been lovely being in touch with you. And Sir Janel Singh Anand, sir, I think this is the last poet of this session, and we are going to end this session.
Excuse me, can you hear me? I was also supposed to read, and I had an electricity problem the whole day, so I maybe got in a little late, and then I couldn't get in, so I had to ask for a new Zoom code and everything. My name is Pankari, and I think I was also supposed to read. I came in like about 10 minutes back.
Dr. Anand?
Is she in your group? I think so.
No, sir. She was not in the list.
I am in the poster.
Sir, what about me?
ਉਹ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਆ ਰਿਹਾ ਅੱਗੇ
Yes,
Pankuri
we have a next session.
Pankuri se ਕਰਵਾਓ Pankuri, hello.
Pankuri is also in the next session, sir. Sorry for the intrusion. We're going to be starting with the next session with Saranya. Pankuri and Inderjeet ji both are in the next session. Let's wait for a minute so that we begin the next session. And before we wind up this session, Mandakini, a request to you. Wouldn't you like to join us for a poetry recital as well? Why don't you also present your poetry?
Thank you so much, Parneet. And I sort of preempted you. I recited my poem at the very beginning.
Yeah, I'm a permanent intruder, so now you know that.
No,
I come and creep in any time.
No, but Parneet, I recited my poem at the very beginning. The poem I began with was Cosmetic Love, and so
you're happy with that?
Yes, I stole a chance. So I'd just like to end with a few lines, if you permit me, Parneet.
Sure.
Thank you. So I would like to quote and end here. Thank all my distinguished poet guests, and thank you, Parneet. Thank you, Jarnail Singh ji, and my technical team who were supporting me all throughout without a hitch. And I would like to end with Sahir's lines, which I would translate immediately. It's the reflection on the current situation. आज सारी फजा भिखारी है और मैं इस भिखारी फजा में अपने नगमों की झोली पसारे दर बदर फिर रहा हूँ. मुझको फिर मेरा खोया हुआ साज दो. मुझको फिर मेरा खोया हुआ साज दो. मैं तुम्हारा मुगन्नी तुम्हारे लिए जब भी आया नए गीत लाता रहूंगा, मैं तुम्हारा मुगन्नी, तुम्हारे लिए जब भी आया नए गीत लाता रहूंगा. That was the eponymous Sahir Ludhianvi, and I'll just translate these lines quickly for our foreign guests. Today, the world is destitute. Today, the world is destitute, and amidst this poverty, I offer my songs, door to door, in return for alms. Give me back my lost timbrel. I, your songster, promise to bring new songs for you whenever I come. So, on those lines, I end this poetry session and hope we meet again and get to hear each other's poems. Thank you so much. I take farewell.
Thank you, Mandakini.
Thank you, Mandakini. Thank you for that. Yeah. Thank you for that lively and colorful session that was managed with a prodigious refinement and energy of intellect that we all appreciate. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for joining us. And for the next session, I now invite a very beautiful human soul, Saranya Francis, a beautiful friend who is also a multilingual poet and an English lecturer. She's an assistant professor of English at St. Paul's College, Bangalore. She is also associated with the Poetry Open Mic of Bangalore Poetry Circle. She's a writer, she's an editor, and a beautiful soul you will soon meet. So I invite you, Saranya, to curate the next poetry session.
Thank you, Dr. Parneet Jaggi. Thank you, Dr. Janil Singh Anand, for making me such a vital part of the WPC right from its inception. Dr. Janil has been exceptionally paternal and even partial to me sometimes in allowing me my excesses, much like a little child running around with her excitement and enthusiasm. And he's always generously accommodated my poetry and my work in his works of erudition. Thank you so much, Dr. Janil. It's been wonderful associating with you for the last 3 years. This evening, we will begin our poetry recitations. We will begin our listening evening with someone I hold in high esteem. We will now hear from Dr. Lalit Mohan Sharma. We will begin our next session of poetry with Sri Lalit Mohan Sharma. Sir? Lalitji, are you on the...
yeah, I am there.
Okay. Yes, we will now begin with Dr. Lalit Mohan Sharma's rendition. May I
don't
request...
appear in the... Yeah, I am there. In the corner.
Maji, may I request you to mute yourself? Okay. And may I also request the host to allow me to share the screen, please?
There's some problem down there? No. I'm there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We hear you. I'm just requesting the host to allow me to share the screen. Yeah.
You can share your screen.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Welcome everyone to this session of the World Poetry Conference-lll on 12th June 2021, the 7:30 p.m. session. We are behind by about 25 minutes, but we will make up for it with all the excellent poems that we are going to hear this evening. To begin with, we have our distinguished guest with us, Dr. Lalit Mohan Sharma. Dr. Lalit Mohan Sharma is the former principal of Government College Dharamshala and member of NAC's peer team, has 6 books of English poetry to his credit, including a translation of Urdu poetry. His poems have been in several anthologies and journals, published research papers and worked with PhD scholars all along his career. He has been, among other honors, recognized by Galaxy International Foundation as a connoisseur of creative arts. His latest book of English poems, Eyes of Silence came out in August 2020. Dr. Lalit Mohan Sharma, absolute pleasure having you amidst us, sir. I recall very fond memories of spending some great moments at WPC1 in Bhatinda, and really looking forward to hearing your poems here. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Start. I'm audible. The poem
Yes,
is
sir.
titled. The poem is titled "The Kiss." The Kiss is the title of the poem. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are. Please go ahead.
The virus blackens the mood of thought. The virus blackens the mood of thought, darkens the sunshine of imagination. The virus blackens the mood of thought, darkens the sunshine of imagination. And here I wish to embrace you as when rhythms of flesh into a melody of love turn and steer the mind to overwhelm the unease of self. And here I wish to embrace you as when rhythms of flesh into a melody of love turn and steer the mind to overwhelm the unease of self and the virus around. A kiss seals a bonding to fly the finite. A kiss seals a bonding to fly the finite and flutter in the infinite being of mine. Can you unpack your heart like a whore? Can you unpack your heart like a whore? Or a politician at hustings, even as rows wait their turn for funeral rites? Or a politician at hustings, even as rows wait their turn for funeral rites and do spend half a dozen hours or be dubbed inept and corrupt as they insist to get more vaccines or oxygen for the sick. Keep adding more than 2 lakhs every 24 hours, and there stirs a strong urge for political nirvana. And there stirs a strong urge for political nirvana as migrant workers pack ready in a hurry. Migrant workers pack ready in a hurry to hobble back to their native homes. Demonic the laughter in the nightmare. Demonic the laughter in the nightmare of a threat as of an apparition. Demonic the laughter in the nightmare of a threat as of an apparition, giving a real-time alarm to the two locked in a kiss of primordial joy of passion. Giving a real-time alarm to the two locked in a kiss of primordial joy of passion. That's all. I hope you got the point. Was I okay?
Yeah.
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely.
Yesterday.
Thank you.
Yesterday we had problems. Today, very well done. Thank you, brother. So nice of you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lalit Mohan Sharma. I think the phrase unease of life that you had used in your poem so clearly captures the nightmare of migration that happened during the lockdown last year. And I think it is really, really an eye-opener in terms of the trauma and tragedy that the lockdown was owing to the pandemic. Thank you once again, sir, for your erudite rendition. Thank you so much. Moving on, our next poet this evening is our guest of honor. Our guest of honor, Dr. Armeli Quizon from Philippines, also from the US, is the granddaughter of Honorable President of Philippines, Manuel Louis Quizon. Dr. Armeli Quizon is an acclaimed researcher and writer. She has made various contributions to the literary world, starting from her unique way of writing poetry, where she uses the last word of the first line and first word of the last line and so forth. She has also introduced the concept of intertwined poem, in which two poets answer each line of their poem, thus intertwining the meanings of their poems. She's an international Confest initiator and the founder creator of Feelings International Artist Society, which has over 5.8 thousand global members. We are so honored to have you with us this evening, ma'am. Dr. Armili Quizon, over to you.
Hello.
She's there?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
No, not yet.
Definitely.
I am adjusting the audio.
Turn up the video first.
Huh?
Turn up the video.
Turn off the video first. Okay. Hindi. Ako na magsasalita.
It's already on, to be honest with you.
Oo nga, pero I cannot hear. Ano ba yan?
No, we're good. It's already recording.
Okay. Start video. There you go. Thank you. Hello, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, Dr. Quizon, please go on.
Thank you so much. Because I have been joining the last one. I am thinking Dr. General Anad, whatever. He is really my first friend in India. And that was a long time ago, about 2014. I was still in California mentoring some new teachers. I'm so glad to see all of you here. Although I have seen the others, Professor Duane was with us before, and then Dr. Journal really is an inspiration to everybody. He opened up so many episodes of poetry because he is poetry. That's it. That's how we call him. He is so very amiable and very caring, really. That's why I cannot get off from India. And one thing more, we were together in KIT University somewhere. Is that, how do you say it? Odisha. Yeah. And now I'm here because I got my first friend here, Dr. Anand. I call him just Jernael because he's just like a brother to me. And Duane of Thailand. But you are in USA now, right? Okay. What do you like me to do? Read my poem? I don't know. Can you still hear me? No more.
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay. What do you like me to do? Tell about poetry, literary, dances? Or you like me to read my poem, which I just wrote on the 7th? Okay. Dr. Janelle.
Dr. Quizon,
yeah,
we request you to read your poem and share your thoughts as well. You being
I
guest of
will be
honor this
reading
evening,
it
we
now.
welcome you to share your thoughts as well as read your poem.
My poems are usually just what other poets told me. I write with my heart. That's it. And my poems are really very simple that even a child could read it and interpret it. I don't like to be using jargon words that you have to look at the meaning from the dictionary. So this is what I wrote a while ago. Literary and yesteryear creation in the present situation. As you said, my first word or my last word in the first line is my word on the second one. Okay. Literary yesteryear's creation in present situation. My ever favorite since I was but 10, the literary famous Rabindranath Tagore. Rabindranath Tagore is the Bengal lord in literary word of literary in yesteryears. But I still, and you still, remember him in the present. Present has many luminaries. Still, Tagore inspires so many lacks and much more. More luminaries in politics, warfare, even in viruses? My question. Viruses that cause pandemic. Pandemic that we don't like. Pandemic that disturbs good normalcy. Normalcy. Words dream to have to hold forever. So it should be. Be it we play so fervently, but we pray. We pray to accomplish in reality. Reality of brotherhood, peace, charity. Charity in everyone's heart for everybody. Everybody, no judgmental in race, color, or orientation. Orientation in religion, belief, tradition. Tradition, characteristics, and behavior. Behavior upholds peace in contemporary civilization. Civilization still respects life, which we say life to live and let live. Live and have literary creations. Creations of poetry, music, dances, paintings, works of artists. They are gems. Gems of yesteryears, lovingly, historically remembered. Remembered as inspirations, as words, monumental achievement. Because you are poets, we are poets, and we express the feelings of the world, of the kids, the adults, you and I. And so with much thank to my first friend in India, Dr. Jarnel, and to you guys, because I'm so happy that I see you here. I have been to India about 6 times. The last time was when I inaugurated the Festival of Colors, and so happy.
Thank you so much,
Saranya,
Dr. Armeli.
Molly, and Lalit, Duane, and the other poets. Oh, I was with Ravi Ranjanathan of Odisha. And so I have also seen my brother Dash here. I still have your book and reading them. I love poetry, and as others say, I write with my heart, because when you write with your heart, you express your whole being, and you express also those of the people you know, because literary of yesteryears, they are creations that are respected, and they inspire us, in spite of the fact that they were of yesteryears, and yet we read them. We are inspired by them, the way I'm inspired by Dr. Jarnel's books and whatever he says, because it comes from a very intelligent mind with his heart on his lips.
Okay, Dr. Armeli, thank you very much for your visit to
Thank
India.
you so much.
To America.
I love
so
you
nice,
all.
So nice of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you to all of you.
Thank you,
Namaste.
Dr. Armeli Kuzon. I think, yes, thank you so much. The fact that you write from your heart shows in the way that you recite your poetry, as well as the way that you address all your fellow poets and your friends from India. Extremely grateful for your presence and for your wonderful and compassionate rendition of the poem that you've written. Thank you so much, ma'am. It's been an absolute honor having you.
Thank you so much. I owe you.
As we move on this evening, we move on to our next distinguished guest. Our next distinguished guest is Professor Duan Voorhees from Thailand. Professor Duan Voorhees is right now enjoying his retirement from the University of Maryland. And in his space in Thailand, he loves to write and relax. He's the author of several volumes of poetry, prominently The Many Loves of Duan Voorhees, his gift, God Runs Through All These Rooms and Heaven. He's also very well known for his blog posts and the way he accommodates other bloggers and other poets, giving them space and voice on his blog. We welcome you in our midst, Professor Duan.
Are you okay?
Oh, yes.
Did it unmute now?
Yes, please.
All right, good. I had a brain freeze for a second. So I am glad to see our Melly again, and it has been far too long since we've been together. I hope that can be fixed somehow in the not too distant future. To answer your question, I am back in Thailand, I think permanently. I was in the US for a few years for personal reasons, but I'm happily back in Thailand. Of course, Janelle, thank you very much for your kind invitation to let me participate in this conference. There are two sorts of zebras in this world, and two kinds of love, cacti and violets. The love that burns and the love that cools to then burn anew. The dreamy love that won't let us sleep. The active love that leaves us in peace. The crazy love that drives us sane. The spendthrift miser. Black zebras with white stripes and white ones with black. Thank you all very much.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Voorhees, for visiting us again. That is wonderful. That is wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Professor Duan Voorhees. I think the power of his poetry is visible in the way that he's able to put such complex realities into such a succinct manner. Thank you so much. Absolute pleasure hearing you all over again. I still recall the wonderful moments we spent in Yerkad when you were here for the Plant Poetry Festival 2 years ago. And I think that spirit of sharing your thoughts and sharing your wonderful presence with us is still the same, unchanged despite the change of your location. Thank you so much once again for your presence. Moving on with the evening. Up next, we will be hearing from our next distinguished guest. Our next distinguished guest for the evening, Mrs. Pramila Khadun, who is a writer and poetess from the Republic of Mauritius. Before retiring as an educator, she was the head of home economics at Modern College. She has had published the following so far: 7 collections of poetry, 2 novels, 1 textbook and a booklet. She has contributed in at least 100 international anthologies and received various certificates of recognition worldwide. Ma'am, we are so happy and proud to have you in our midst. Over to you, Mrs. Pramila. Mrs. Pramila.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Yeah. Yes.
You can hear me. Okay. First of all, I would like to thank with all my heart Brother Dr. Janil Anand for giving me this golden opportunity to participate in this World Poetry Conference. I congratulate poets who have read poems before me. They were really very fantastic and mind-stirring. I also congratulate the panelists who did a marvelous job in expanding our knowledge in various fields. Now, without losing time, I'm going to proceed with the reading of my poem, which is entitled When Christ and Krishna Cried at Midnight. We are sure the thought-provoking luminaries, cutting-edge visionaries, and tireless researchers must be pondering on how our lives have changed in unimaginable proportion. We are convinced that everybody who plays a crucial role in helping people live their lives expansively must be wondering with a delicate sense of moral concern and a necessary sense of urgency that something serious has to be done before we all sink down with brows cloudy. Dazed and confused, with face sad and sombre, I walked alone in the valleys where tower the cotton trees, in faith and not in fear. Suddenly I saw a light on top with a compelling power of attraction. Looking carefully, I saw Christ and Krishna sitting close to each other, fingers intertwined, like inseparable twins who are alike and think alike. There was a deep silence. I joined my hands and prayed. I felt mysteriously heartbroken. Seeing their tears trickling down, I walked a few steps closer to them, and the light became brighter. Christ wiped Krishna's tears, and Krishna wiped Christ's tears. I sat close to them, sobbing lamentably. They wiped my tears as well. Do not cry, Mama, Christ said lovingly, and Krishna whispered in my ears, Mama, where there is life, there is hope.
Excellent, excellent observations, Pramila ma'am. I think this urgency of action towards making the world a better place, towards healing through tears, is so beautifully brought out in your poem. We really thank you for bringing this dialogue, bringing this situation to life, where Christ wipes Krishna's tears and Krishna wipes Christ's tears. And when you as a poet approach them, they wipe your tears too. Thank you so much for that.
He is most welcome. I wrote a foreword for one of her books. And I know she is a very talented poet. Welcome, Pramila.
Thank you,
so
brother.
nice of you for visiting us. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Dr.
you very
Janet.
much.
Thank you, Pramila ma'am. Moving on, our next distinguished guest for the evening, Dr. Poonam Nigam Sahai from Ranchi, India. Dr. Poonam. A quick introduction of our distinguished guest, Dr. Poonam Nigam Sahai. Dr. Sahai is an associate professor in English at Ranchi University. She is a published bilingual poet in Hindi and English. Besides being a prolific writer, critic, reviewer, and editor, she's been awarded and honored on various platforms for her poems and presentations. Besides teaching, she's also actively guiding doctoral students. We welcome you, ma'am.
Saranya, I think she's not there. In Ranchi, it is raining heavily, so I think she's not there.
Right, Mama. Thank you so much for updating us. She had joined just a few minutes ago, and she had mentioned in the chat that she's available. We will move on with our next poet, and once Dr. Sahai is able to join us, we will. Yes, sir. So we'll move ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Our next distinguished poet, Dr. Maureen Rajamani from Malaysia, is an educator in the government sector and has been teaching for 25 years. She possesses a doctorate in English studies, and as a poet, she has a passion to impart knowledge through her variety of poems, which invoke a wide range of modes covering fantasy, reality, lifestyle, as well as spirituality. Currently, she serves in the Chanwa National Type Secondary School, Seramban, Malaysia. We welcome you in our midst, ma'am. Dr.
Yes,
Rajmani.
yeah. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Greetings from Malaysia. Thank you for having me to present my poetry here. At this time of a pandemic, it is very common to think of all the doctors who are frontliners here in Malaysia, working long hours and accepting increased risk of infection, and yet they provide. Also to the educators, Malaysia just celebrated their Teachers' Day and being trained to teach physically. And now we have to relearn how to teach using technology. Amidst all this, we tend to forget the most important people who put food on our tables. So I therefore pay tribute to all the farmers who toil the soil, who reap the harvest, who sow the seeds that give growth of nourishment to the world. So a tanka, it is here for them. Rain patters lightly on the rich grounds of dawned land, showering goodness for harvest to yield and bless, and well-being satisfied. Ranching for good crop, for population to grow, livestock to survive, animals to be fed well. We, in turn, to be healthy. That is my tanka, and I like to say thank you for listening, and thank you especially to Dr. Journal and the company for this Zoom, so that we are here together. And one more poetry will talk about it and say that we are coming together. Here we are, locked in the squares of the home, imprisoned by the commands to keep safe from the variants, from the invisibility, from the pains. We unite for this. Fight the variants, fight the invisibility, fight the pains. Bring it down, the numbers, the maths, the anxiety of the morrow. With that, I thank you.
Thanks. Very well done, Dr. Morin. Very impressive.
Thank you.
Wonderful poem, wonderful poem.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
Sorry, sir. Sorry. Yes, go ahead, sir. All right. On that note, thank you so much, Dr. Maureen Rajmani, for being so deeply invested in the human condition with your poems and having spoken to us about the struggles of the frontline workers. I think it takes someone with a deep discerning mind to showcase the struggles in the way that you have shown us. Thank you so much for your presence and for your poems, ma'am. And to remind us of this beautiful form of poetry, the tanka form. It's a form that I feel a lot of us could do more experiments with. We will probably be thinking about it a little more as well. Thank you, ma'am. Akashdeep ji, may we request you to kindly mute yourself? Thank you. Moving ahead this evening, we have our guest poets starting their renditions. Our first guest poet this evening is Mr. Indrajit Singh from Bhatinda, India. He's an English school teacher with the Haryana government. He's authored several books and is an established painter as well. He's also a member of the organizing committee of WBC3. We welcome you, Mr. Indrajit Singh, with fond memories of having spent some quality time in Bhatinda with all of you all in the organizing committee. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I am highly indebted from head to toe to Dr. Janel Singh Anand for providing me such an opportunity to be present myself in this World Poetry Conference-lll. Since ever I have been associated with Dr. Janel Singh, I have been boosting up and encouraged by him at every step. And I think before all these world dignitary poets, I am just a toddler. who is just trying to tread on his feet with the guidance of Dr. Jarnail Singh Anand. So in this crucial time of pandemic, I have written my poem, which titles Don't Exit the Friends Group, because they say we have to follow social distancing, we have to keep distance from each other. But I think from our peer groups, from our friends group, we should not be far away by our heart and soul. We should be interconnected, and this I have tried to put in my poem. So am I audible to all of you?
You are
Yes, sir.
audible.
You are.
Okay, so I'm going to recite my poem, Don't Exit the Friends Group. Light love, lure hearts. Buddies are meant for ambience. Society, groups, teat a teat, meetings, gatherings, and reliance on each other with faith and confidence make life survivable. Aloofness from the loved ones diminishes the fire and warmth, thus makes one kithless. Opening of the heart with buddies saves cardiac overhauling from the hands of cardiac surgeon. Keep burning, be alive in the peer group like bonfire. This is the central line or central idea of my poem. Keep burning, be alive in the peer group like bonfire. Burn thy ego, arrogance, and acquire the status of one emitting radiance of love, compassion, and support. As charred wood separated from the fire extinguishes in no time, if put back to the same fire, begins to burn in no time. Aloofness is a curse. Aloofness is a curse. Being in the peer group can nurse, heal, and cure the wounds of the curse on the heart, spirit, and soul for sure. Being in the peer group can nurse, heal, and cure the wounds of the curse on heart, spirit, and soul for sure. Thank you very much for giving me such an opportunity to present myself in this level World Poetry Conference 3. Thank you very much, all here.
All the best, Indrajit. Thank
Thank you,
you
sir.
for being with us. Great time.
Thank you very much, sir.
All right.
Very nice.
Thank you, Indrajit ji, for reminding us that har ek friend zaruri hota hai, and to also remember that we need everyone's support and everyone's presence in our life to deal with this pandemic. That was a wonderful reminder from your end. We thank you for your poem as well. We will move on with the evening's presentation.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next poet is Dr. Suman Keswani from Nagpur, India. Dr. Suman?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, I'm there.
Yes, yes, ma'am. A very quick introduction of Dr. Suman Keswani. She's an assistant professor of English at DRB Sindhu Mahavidyalaya, Nagpur, a dentist by fate, a teacher by profession, and a poet by heart, she calls herself. We welcome you, ma'am, and wait to hear your poetry. Over to you.
Thank you, ma'am, for the introduction. So my poem is titled, An Ascetic Am I? So I really feel that the life of a poet is very much similar to that of an ascetic. So I start my poem. I crave for moments solitary amidst a speeding day. In the prevailing chaos and servitude, nothing thrills me more than a diary and pen and serene solitude. In a pensive mood, immersed in thoughts, the screeching sounds appall me no end. I wish to retreat to a quiet corner, dodging every vicissitude.
When earthly duties pester me with the tick of time, I brood and sigh over the blasted heath and pray for respite from the din of life and rampant lassitude. Like an acerbic ascetic, I carry on the worship of words with eyes open and
What has happened?
no, ma'am. I'll continue. Can you hear me?
Dr. Keswani, yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
Please continue.
Poets seek the divine without renouncing the world, donning a prophetic attitude. They are agents of change who unravel the enigma with messianic vision to challenge the falsitude. Thank you very much.
Very
Thank you,
good.
everyone.
Very nice.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Keswani, for your rendition. We move on with our evening of poetry rendition. Our next guest poet is Mrs. Pankhuri Sinha, an Indian origin poet from the USA. Pankhuri, are you with us?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Pankhuri Sinha is a bilingual poet and story writer from India. She's lived in North America for over 14 years now and has won many prestigious national and international awards and has been translated in over 22 languages. We welcome you, Ms. Sinha. Over to you.
Thank you so much. I'm very honored to be here, and a very big thank you to Jarnail sir as well. And I think without too much formality, I'll just read my poem. Yesterday, I think Shashi Tharoor just tweeted that there's going to be a third wave, and that inspired me to write this. So I wrote this just yesterday. It's called Black Death. It will be over, the dance of death. The long lines of dead bodies before cremation grounds, people talking of smoke smell in the air. Death is frightening in its arrival, realization, and disposal. It will go, the image of death in that flowing black robe, triangular cap, with a sharply pointed tip, axe in hand, the way you saw it in your childhood comic books. Roaming hungry, thirsty in the streets right outside your house. Will fade. Life will win with its chosen few for as long as the earth is alive and the earth is older and younger than the heavens and all the forecasts of the gods. She has endured countless deaths of beloved sons, respected fathers, true lovers. She has cried silently in rain and thunder, in rivers and gorges, cascading waterfalls, silent ponds, having blessed them once. She has cried in floods and droughts, and she has persevered earthquakes, avalanches to keep alive. For as long as the earth is alive, there will be 4 seasons and the potential of yet another harvest cycle. For nothing arrives like spring and nothing falls like snow. But this glorious morning bathing in golden sunshine, the choice is yours. Will you be there to greet it all? Choose yourself. Lock yourself for as long as you can, and when you do step out, cover your face and hide from the crowd. It will be over. This madness of people dying, gasping for oxygen in cars parked outside hospitals. Bodies piled on the beds, just admitting patients. This callousness that kills so many. This callousness that kills so many in a blink will be over, and the tiny shrub growing unnoticed underneath your window will shoot up and send its flowering branches inside your window. And you will need to choose again. Will you keep it or will you let it go? My dear, choose wisely. Will you cut it all off or will you just trim? Will you also transplant? Please. So the sunlight remains golden, bathing in green. Look at the curvy lines of your palm. The future belongs to you. Choose to befriend the greenery and let the black death come Never back again.
Welcome, Pankuri. Very nice presentation.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
And we hope to remain connected.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely, sir.
Yes. This
Ms.
gives us
Sinha,
a very good chance to connect with people. Yes, please go on, Saranya.
thank you, sir. Ms. Sinha, I think such rich imagery of positivity and power in your poetry. I think we all have that choice, and you have reminded us to be there and show up for everything that's going to be good as well after this dreaded period ends. Thank you so much for that reminder, and thank you so much for sharing your words with us. We move on with our evening.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. We move on with our evening. Our next poet is Divyanshi Magja from Bangalore, India. She's a poet and a medical student. As a frontline worker, she's been at the forefront of the pandemic here in Bangalore. Divyanshi, we welcome you to present your poem. Divyanshi?
I think she was there.
She is there, sir.
Thank you, Anand sir, for providing me this platform to present my poem. So the title of my poem is Light Beyond Dark. The hustles of our lives are never really over, but that doesn't mean that we are supposed to be sad forever. This is a time when we need to be bolder and not afraid, to fight the virus invisible and critical, and to live the lockdown, which we once thought was hypothetical. We have got a chance to build it better, as it was gifted to us by our ancestors, and not to turn it into a catastrophe, but to make it a masterpiece, to seize all the hatred and give future generation a silver crease. We have got no reason for rage. We are not locked in a cage. We got to live in our homes, to fill the blank space and sons and daughters to embrace. To be precise, I don't yet believe in humanity's demise, as people still believe in Hail Mary. They stand up with the life's burden they carry. They try to remain sane, out of pain, cherishing rain, and working on morale's gain. We have got to realize that whatever the worst crap life throws at us, all we got to do is survive. And yeah, pain is one thing that makes us alive. We may feel horrible, terrible, but at the end of all of this, we are going to see the blissful paradise. I know that the cycle of spread is turning vicious, and each and every life is becoming a lot more precious. And all the time we fix our gaze in the TV space, and seeing the increasing numbers, we're filled with anger and craze. We need to admit that no one is pioneer or ideal or legend. Everyone is just following the global trend. No more worrying about possessions. Everyone's obsession is to work on disease spread regression. We all got one mission, and that's to stop the virus's invasion. And trust me, there is no scope for any treason. So stay safe and stay wise, and always believe that no matter what, sun is always gonna rise. Not to forget to thank the corona survivors, the rivals who are going to give us herd immunity, and of course, the people on the front line, working with all their spirit divine. Without them, the ship would have been a complete wreck. So thanks to the saviors for being on the deck. Thanks for raising the survival rate bar, even with the painful mask scar. Thanks for always prioritizing your patients over your family, even after realizing that you are at the highest risk of getting the disease emerging. Talking about 2020, everybody's like erase it. But no offense, a part of me believes, as it sees the sanity, that all of this is happening to teach mankind the gravity of cleanliness and happiness, and not to take them for granted, even when memories of all of this get fainted. Thank you everyone for your patience listening. And here one point. I think it's my moral duty to express my heartfelt thanks to the organizers of the World Poetry Conference and for giving me this opportunity. And I want to share with you all that my grandfather, Mr. K.S. Madan, was a great poet of English literature, great lover of English literature, and he published his 3 volumes of poetry. And the latest one is O Rajiv, the dearest dear. I hope you guys read this. And I want to end by sharing 2 lines. Oh God, save me from a sinful breath and raise my thoughts and spirits above. Thank you.
Welcome. बहुत अच्छे बेटा. Very fine. Carry on.
Thank you, Divyanshi. Thank you for reminding us about how much the frontline workers matter and how much this pandemic has taught us in terms of, the value of happiness. And I think in this lies our hope when young people like you are full of positivity, full of power, and full of wisdom, and I'm sure everybody on the panel here, on the meeting today will agree that it is young people like you that want us to keep our hopes alive. God bless you for all your endeavors. God bless you with all your writing, and such a wonderful gesture to remember your grandfather as well at this on this forum. Thank you, Divyanshi, for those wonderful, wonderful words. God bless you.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Our next poet of the evening is Sri Gyaneshwar Prasad. Sri Gyaneshwar Prasad is from Patna, India, a poet and a mathematics teacher. He's an author of 2 books. He's published prose and poetry in various anthologies. We welcome you in our midst, sir. Sri Gyaneshwar Prasad. Gyaneshwar ji?
Yes, ma'am, he's there in the meeting. He needs to unmute himself.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Yes, he's unmuted. Oh, muted again.
My sound is coming on?
Yes.
Yes. Now, I am reciting my poem. Okay. I am shapeless, true forever. I am shapeless, true forever. The world is my beloved. This earth is my wonderful garden. People are my beloved. Consistently calling religion. Why do you wondering? Having false mask of religion. Why do you becoming religious? Having hatred and hate in mind. Every day spread untruth and hate. Having slogan of my name. You burn someone's home. Sometimes by clearing hand with blood. Sometimes come after robbing one's modesty. Sometimes burn someone's home. Sometimes you spray the darkness of religion. By lighting fire of lust in mind, you rob even the little girl being intoxicated of opium, cannabis, or alcohol. You do evil. You do evil thing by making false face for the religion. You wonder being as a wolf. When did you become a part of the mob system? Do you ever have pity? Do not want your devotion. Do not want your protection for a religion. Don't want worship, namaz, or prayer. Do not want your certain dress. Will you ever look back? What have you lost? Will you defend your identity? Will you execute religionism? No. You just wander like this by shouting slogan and to save religion, being immersed in darkness by making identity of the puppet. You consider inequity to be a religious. Is this your identity? Selling your honesty for false saving of religion, robbing a woman and walking shamelessly to worship, but do not do pity, to hate a caste or religion, or and to be called I am patriot or religious. Someone calling far away, they are knowledge, science, logic, faith, and look behind of them. Someone standing there holding torch in hand for the love and humanity and calling, standing far away, give me a hug, adopt me, give me a place in your soul. Come on, love me. I am selfless, true forever. The world is my beloved. The earth is my wonderful garden. People are my beloved. Thank you very much. This is my poem.
Thank you, Ganeshwarji, for your presentation.
Thank you for everyone. I have got this opportunity to recite my poem. I am very grateful to Dr. Jarnail Singh, who has invited me to attend this World Poetry Festival. Thank you to everybody.
Ganeshwarji, I was really surprised by the sheer energy of your poetry.
Yes, sir. Really, sir. Thank you, sir.
Welcome and thank you so much.
Thank you once again. We move on with the evening. Our next poet for the evening is Dr. Sujata Jha. So, Dr. Sujata Jha is from Patna, India. He holds a doctorate in sociology from Jamia Millia Islamia University. He's a classical music and poetry enthusiast. We welcome you, Dr. Jha.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I would like to thank Professor Anand for allowing me to participate in this conference in front of such esteemed names. It was such a pleasure to listen to such wonderful poetry. It was a great learning experience and a mind-numbing experience for that matter. I mean, I stand humble. I've just started writing, so it's a pleasure to share my poetry in front of you all. I'll just go ahead. The title of my poem is, am I audible? Am I audible?
Yeah, absolutely.
So the title of my poem is Solace and Woes. Here goes. On days I'm anxious and seek calm, forest gives me solace in arms. On days I see no future and nights seem bleak, the birds chirping tell me there's something else to seek. The ripple in water, the shattering of waves against stone brings peace untold. On days of unusual agony, the charms of nature often unfold. The dry leaves brushing against the ground seems like a lover whispering sweet nothings on a cold night. Have you felt the rush winds bring on cold days? Have you felt the silence amidst the branches romancing with each other? In the noise of the cities and charm of music above all, we have forgotten to listen to the silence amidst us all. Of all the agonies that cities bring to us, I remembered the angst of being a woman. Being a woman brings with it the agony of not knowing how to live alone. Is alone enough? Is not knowing what lies ahead enough? In times of precision and decision, I am who I am. Thank you so much.
Very good. I am what I am. Nice.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you.
Dr. Jha, such an old world soul, aren't you? To be recounting these things that all of us are fast forgetting. Thank you so much for that gentle reminder and so beautifully portraying with such simple imagery, such a poignant message. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
moving on with our evening, our next guest poet is Miss Kamar Sultana from Bangalore, India. Miss Sultana is an ex-IT professional, a poet, and a nature enthusiast. We welcome you, Miss Sultana. Are you able to hear us?
You need to unmute me, the video. Yeah.
You are unmuted. We can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Can you see me? Are you able to see me?
Your video is off.
You need to, the video, okay, yeah, right. Now?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am, we can see you.
Thank you. Okay, here's my poem. I thank Dr. Anand for this opportunity. Thank you so much. And thanks to all of you for putting such a wonderful program together. And thank you, Saranya. So here's my poem. The Four Fathers, F-O-U-R. Okay. A person has four fathers, or rather, in his rather chauvinistic, eyebrow-raised challenge in air expression. A man has four fathers, said my father. I ignored the purposeful bait and let him continue without interrupting. The first, he said, is his father, who is related by blood. Okay, this much I too know, I huffed mentally. The second, with a grandiose gesture of his strong hand, is his teacher, who teaches him to read and write. That's cool. But it could be mother too, I mentally countered. Sometimes a boy is lucky to have his father as his teacher, he mentioned vaguely. Third, he said, is a man's father-in-law, for he too deserves what is due to one's own father. He must be thinking of grandpa, I thought, referring to my maternal grandfather. His fond look confirmed my thoughts. And the fourth, I now ventured to ask. He looked at me alarmed. I thought you wouldn't be interested. Well, I am, I said. Better be prepared, was his reply, a warning look in his eye. Somehow it caused a thrill to pass through me. The spiritual master, was the reply. He cancels everyone out. He is the real father, for he births the spiritual essence of you and takes you beyond the mortal birth which parents give. Why can't it be mother? All along, I said, except the first. My rebellious cross-query, as always, my father humphed. One can only speak of what one has been through. Okay, I'll take it as it is, I said. Let me see how many mothers and fathers I get. You are one stubborn brat. He fondly gazed at me and continued. But it's my guess you will look beyond all this one day, and you will be right. So many teachers have been as good as mothers to me. I have met many a teacher who has been just a teacher, not father. Father-like, fatherly, but not father. Until I met the one whom I called Abbaji, and he said, "Come, sit." In his presence, I met all his forefathers who came to be mine for a lifetime, after life, and the hereafter. Thank you.
Very good. Sultana writes so well that her book Golden Dawn was given Galaxy Award of the book of the year in 2019. Yes, she is showing up. Thank you. Congratulations once again. It was released day before yesterday.
Thank you so much, Sajid,
And when she came up with the concept of four fathers, it is really very surprising how she puts it up. Sultana, keep writing. Very good. Very well. Thank you.
Thank you, Sajid. Bless. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sultana. Thank you, Dr. Anand, for reminding us about her award as well. One unique thing about Sultana that I have noticed is she would write things at the spur of the moment, and her themes and topics range from the mundane everydays to what is beyond and what is before and after. Thank you so much for that poem, Sultana. Moving on with our evening.
Beautiful.
moving on with our evening. Our next guest poet is Mr. Sushanta Bhattacharya from Assam, India. Mr. Sushanta is a poet, a bilingual writer, a businessman, and the editor of Suchetana magazine. Mr. Sushanta?
Yes.
Over to you, sir.
Yes. Yes. Good evening. Here I am, Sushanta Bhattacharya. My poem, Oh Goodness of Humanity. Oh goodness of humanity, give us golden vision to construct a new green earth for all human beings in this social setup to get pure oxygen and pure water. The earth is now the dumping ground of all waste products, causing dreaded diseases. The unlimited desire of human being is responsible for all this imbalance. Now it is the time to break this odd vicious circle to protect this green earth and its ozone layer by any means of social and personal sacrifice for new world order with humanity. Spiritual essence is required to boost up the spirit of mankind for love and peace. We have to overcome all the foul deed of past for a sustainable future with balanced growth. The endless misery of mankind should be resolved by the undaunted vision of human being with its spirit of strength and mission for its glorious history of mankind. In this horrible destruction of human glory, one united leadership is necessary to conquer all these sufferings of human and restore the peace globally. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Anand, for giving me this opportunity here. Thank you, everyone.
Most welcome, sir. Most welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bhattacharya, for that quick reminder about retaining our humanity. We move on with the evening. I request the host to check on Dr. Zana Coven. Her volume is not, audio is not connected. So if you could just get in touch with her.
Maybe she has some problems. I think I never saw her.
She's present in the meeting, sir.
Very good. Then
her audio is not connected. Her audio is not connected. Ms. Zana Coven from various places of Europe. She splits her time between Italy, Spain, and Barcelona. She's a poet, a painter, a musician, and haiku enthusiast. She's an award-winning poet and writer. Ms. Zana Coven, are you able to hear us? All right. We will probably hear from her a little later. I request the organizers to kindly check on her as well. We move on with the evening. Dr. Anand, shall we move on with the next poet?
Yeah, please. Let her come up.
Fine, sir.
She comes up and we will call her if she is around.
Sure, sir. Our next poet for the evening is Ms. Mehnaz Khan from Peshawar, Pakistan. She's a professor at the National University of Modern Languages, Peshawar campus. She's a polyglot and widely published academician and poet. We welcome you in our midst, Ms. Khan.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And especially I thank Dr. Janelle Singh Anand for this opportunity. I really enjoyed the whole session because this was a very wonderful opportunity for me, especially to hear from the worldwide poets. And all of them, their writings are really impressive, really impressive. I have learned a lot from all of them. So I'll share my poem. The title of my poem is Why Men Think Too Much and Why Women Speak Too Much. This is the title of the poem. Okay. Men and women, the best of creation. Both are intellect, both are emotions. Man is created in heavenly light first. Mingled more wisdom is in his dust. He was alone. He was alone. No one he had to talk, was left to think alone, alone to walk. Days were passing by, but no one to love, to share emotions about the things above. His manly perceptions of the world around He sank in his thoughts, then truth was found. The charm of world lay in its diversity, where opposites make union and adversity. Sun has moon, the night has noon. For earth was sky, man found his pair soon. There she was created. There she was created as a heavenly delight, gathered luminous hues from the rainbows, brightness from the light. Not were enough the curves of the rills, freshness of the flowers, and toughness of the hills. Thus she was given the music of the wind. Man became her forest to make her louder sing. Offered him happiness and thousand words to say, as myriad emotions were knotted in her clay. Man amazed by her charm, since then think and think. Woman lost in her man, since then sing and sing. Thank you very much, Dr. Janelle Singh Anand and the whole team. I congratulate you for arranging such a wonderful World Poetry Conference.
You are welcome from Pakistan.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Yes, our love for you and your friends, your family.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir.
Hello.
It's Cohen, we can hear you.
Zana is there.
Is Jana here?
Yes, Tapsana, we can hear you. Can you hear us? Zana Cohen, can you hear us?
Please unmute yourself, Jana.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Yes. Go ahead.
Okay. I want to greet the whole poets that are there, and my special thanks to Durjanand and all the staff who made it possible to have this conference. I'm very excited because it's the first time for myself to be on Zoom. I was without internet for several months. And I worked all the day also, so I'm a little bit tired. But now I'm here. My poem is a short poem that I wrote some time ago, but it seems actual all the time. It's called Peace. The dream of money, powerful people, just smile of little ones against the arrogance of you. Greed and selfishness dominate this world of sorrow. Power is blind in its selfishness of domination. Can bring the peace. We dream about it. Why it's so hard to achieve. This is a little poem I wrote time ago, and I see nothing in the world that changed, but we can change the world. As somebody said, that love and the beauty will change the world. It's pure love. It's a pure beauty. So it is we, with our work, with our hearts, that surely will change the world one day. I send my love to everybody of you. I'm so happy and grateful to be here with you today.
Yeah, thank you, Zana Cohen.
We are glad to have you with us today.
Thank you to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Zana. And thanks for that delightfully engaging session, Saranya, with a diversity of poets and poems as well. And we would let you go only after we've had your envelope of ideas opened up amidst us. So I hereby invite you to recite a poem of yours, Saranya Francis. Please unmute yourself.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jaggi, for that lovely invitation. We have one more poem left, so we'll see if we can accommodate that first.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, thank you. Is Ms. Sushri Sangeeta Mishra here? Ms. Sushri?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead. You will be citing your poem now. Ms. Sushri Sangeeta Mishra is from Chennai, India. She's a corporate banking professional, widely published and translated poet. Over to you, Ms. Mishra.
Thank you. Thanks and greetings to all, to Dr. John S. Anand, to all the panelists, and the distinguished speaker, Professor Anandagiri, for their very insightful and incisive presentations on the very topical subject today. And to all the, all the poets for their beautiful and stirring poetry that I've been listening and feeling enriched with. And last but not the least, to the curators of the evening who've been knitting so wonderfully the poems and the poets, the thoughts and the words, and crafting such a beautiful evening. The title of my poem is The Battle of a Blazing Sun. And this poem of mine was published in Indian literature already. This poem of mine is dedicated to the inner journey of all poets who have written poetry and those who have not. Here goes. In the battlefield, I stand still like a flush of the present. In the battlefield, I stand still like a flush of the present, surrounded by innumerable moments, the days departed, the smiles, the tears, the stories of my struggle and win over. My sword is a blank scroll of events to appear. Who can I hurt? Who can I hurt and who I should not? Every sigh of pain is my own. Every drop of tear is my ablution, whether it rolls from the eyes of truth or of illusion. I find my grains in every matter and form. Every despondent thought, born or unborn, reaches and pierces into my core. Where is the distinction between virtue and vice when I know culprit is but a victim of another? Where is the distinction between virtue and vice when I know culprit is but a victim of another? Destination waits for me at the other side of the battle. I know I have to cross over. I know I have to cross over, but who do I fight against and who do I fight for? Who am I and who am I not? At the portal of my conscience, I'm bleeding and blind. I know light is burned to me, yet I see nothing. I drop all weapons. I drop my body, my soul, my wisdom, waiting for the charioteer on the toe of time I sit, immense and alone. Thank you. Thanks to everyone.
Very powerful and very good, very nicely put.
Thank you, Dr.
The road is sure to greatness.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Mishra, for that beautiful rendition. And it's not a surprise that you're already published and established as one of those writers that people have to take note of. We're so happy that you could present your poem to us this evening. Thank you so much. On that note, we have received a voice note from Dr. Poonam Sahai, who is unable to connect with us because of the internet. I will try and play the audio clip if it does reach you all, I hope that we can hear Dr. Sahai's poem as well. So we present to you Dr. Poonam Sahai's poem this evening.
I'm presenting my two poems. The first one is
Very slow.
The first one is Corona on a Night Vigil. Corona moved dynamically.
So is it audible at all?
Yes,
Not
it is audible.
much.
Okay,
Just
all right.
increase
We'll go
the
ahead
voice.
and listen to her.
To watch how its kingdom was growing day by day, it needed to monitor its enemies, keeping negativity far away. Walking in the dark night, it stumbled on the figure of Mother Earth. Her countenance made him dumbfounded. Her streaming eyes rendered him speechless. Why cry you thus, O great mother? 'Tis pains me quite to see you weeping so. Grievous mother admonished him away angrily, but unmoved, Corona held his ground to say, sent on this earth to show a lesson precious and unique. O humans, do not trample humanity, for it is the greatest gift of God. Treat everything with respect. Watch all your steps. Pause. Reflect. Let your actions all be right, for the big or the trite. Truly this the lesson I wish to share. O mother, to protect you is all I care. Saying thus, he vanished into thin air. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sahai, for giving us the pleasure of listening to you despite the internet connectivity issues that you're having. On that note, we come to the end of all the distinguished poets and the guest poets of the evening. And as per Dr. Jagi's request, I will go ahead now and present a short poem that that I wrote and submitted for the World Poetry Conference-lll. I'm Saranya Francis. Very good evening to all of you. And it's a great joy to present my poem in front of the august audience that is the World Poetry Conference-lll. My poem is titled "'Tis Okay." 'Tis okay if I don't strut around with a trumpet that sings of all that I am and could possibly be. 'Tis okay if I don't have all it takes to win this rat race and settle for a roadside room with no key. 'Tis okay if I'm no go-getter, trendsetter, not even a sensational wannabe. 'Tis okay if I'm just a woman who speaks in whispers by the sea. Or maybe a woman who doesn't need the validation of an endless consumer spree. Sure, it shouldn't bother you if I don't chronicle every nitty-gritty of my ordinary life or my pompless revelry. Sure, somewhere someone still values the less spoken, seldom written history. Sure, it should be normal somewhere to fiercely defend my privacy. Sure, someday it would be normal to live moments that aren't all fantasy. Surely someday it would be commonplace to be a kind, unoffended, simple, nameless somebody. 'Tis okay. Thank you.
Very nice. Somebody simple.
Thank you, Saranya, for that evocative poem. For it is said that the principles of true art and true poetry is not to portray but to evoke. So that was really evocative, evoking the true identity of a human being, of a poet, of an individual, and of a woman. So thank you for that engaging session. Thank you for the job, wonderfully done. And because we are quite behind time, I would like Dr. Anand to just comment on the proceedings of the day so that we can wind up the session today. Dr.
Thank you, Praneeth. First of all, I must congratulate and thank Saranya Francis for conducting the show in a brilliant manner. And what actually I was worried about that she was injected for COVID today itself, and she and her husband, they got themselves injected today, vaccinated today. So in spite of that, she has never let us feel that there is some, vaccination has been done today. So nice of you. I'm really happy and thank
Thank you,
you
sir.
on behalf of our organization. And since earlier times, it was Ashu and Ankita who did their job so well. And then it was followed by Mandakini Bhattacharya. That show was also wonderful in its own way. And now it was Rania. It was a long drawn out session today, marathon, I would say, like yesterday. So everybody is not somebody. All the bodies and some bodies were there. So we enjoyed the show, although it was very exacting, very long. All the poets who came, who who sung their poems, recited their poems. Nizar Sartavi Sahab, Arjinder Paddy, and R. Meli, Pramila Khadoon, all my friends who came today and those who could not come, like that our friend Ambassador Lujubomir Mihajlovaksky from Macedonia, because he's a free mind who loves freedom. He says his internet was disturbed by his government. Maybe there are, problems in these countries which are ravaged by war. So we today, we all feel connected with all the issues that the poets have raised and hope that in future also we will be meeting and discussing some sort of platform will be there. And the youngsters whom we saw today, I'm really impressed. I don't know from where they pick up images, metaphors, and the felicity of language. It just surprises us, who are older generation, because we worked very hard in our own times to gather these type of emotions. So in the end, I will like to thank you all, Dr. Praneeth, Saranya once again, and Ashu. They are not here, I think. Are they here? Ashu, Ankita? Maybe they have left. It is evening time and dinner time also. Once again, those who have stayed with us and those who came and left because of issues and certain problems, I am all thankful to you, and I wish to invite you for tomorrow's, function in which there is a discussion, panel discussion in the beginning, followed by poetry session, and then there will be valedictory. So I request you, all my friends, to be present all the time, irrespective of the fact whether you have already read your poem or not. Please be there with us in this concluding part of this program. You made it, and thank you for that. Good night.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. So, ladies and gentlemen, this was yet another journey with poets, poetry, and smiles. Sharing is a huge bliss, and so is writing poetry. And it is the performance of all our faculties, it is the form as well as the meaning that leaves the impact. And I quote a French poet before I close, Paul Valéry, who says in his book, Eden Scripture, he says, the goal of the poet is actually not to communicate a thought, but to give birth to an emotional state in the other, which is similar to his own. So I think we have been successful substantially in uplifting and elating the emotional states of each other through our poetries. For the final but the significant day of the conference, we meet tomorrow, that is 13th of June at 5:30 p.m. sharp. I thank all the guests, all the participating poets, anchors, Ashu, Ankita, Mandakini, and Saranya, and all the members of the organizing team, especially the technical team working behind the curtains, Mukesh ji and Ranveer Gautam ji, for being there with us patiently and wholeheartedly. Thank you, take care, good night, and goodbye. We see you tomorrow.